Go ahead. All right. Good evening. My name is Maishiana Hunter, and I am a senior at Forestville High School. I have maintained a GPA of 3.6 throughout my high school career while taking 4 AP courses. My plans for the future are to attend Alabama State University on a full-ride scholarship and major in fine arts and/or communication. My long-term goal is to become an interior designer. Throughout my years at high school, I have participated in the National Honor Society, Art and Photography Club, Band Majorettes, Special Olympics, and golf. Thank you, Prince George's County Public Schools, for preparing me for college. Now, without further ado, I want to welcome you to the March 21st Prince George's County Board of Education meeting. Please keep checking www.pgcps.org for upcoming Board of Education meetings and events. Please follow us on Twitter at PGCPS for all school news and updates. And now, the March 21st Board of Education meeting will begin.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 21st, 2013 meeting of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Before I begin, please turn off your wireless communications as they tend to interfere with taping of the meeting. Ms. Ahmed, our student member, will not be in attendance this evening. She is attending the annual Maryland Association of Student Councils Convention in Ocean City, Maryland. On behalf of my colleagues and myself, I would like to thank you, Ms. Hunter, from Forestville Military Academy, for the introduction of the board meeting this evening. We are proud of your accomplishments. At this time, Ms. Epps, would you please lead us in the board prayer?
O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Epps. Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
Ms. Beck? Mr. Burrows?
Present.
Ms. Epps?
Here.
Ms. Eubanks? Here. Ms. Fellows?
Here.
Ms. Higgins? Ms. Waller?
Present.
Ms. Boston?
Present.
Ms. Jacobs?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, prior to adoption of the agenda, please note the following changes on item 6.3. Proposed amendments to House Bill 1107 has been added under legislative agenda and under discussion item 7.1. The Excellence in Education Foundation presentation has been removed from tonight's agenda. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Thank you, Ms. Boston. It's been properly moved and second to adopt the agenda as amended. Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
Ms. Beck? Mr. Burrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps?
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks?
Aye.
Ms. Fellows?
Aye.
Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Ms. Ahmed? Excuse me. Ms. Boston?
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion, please, to approve the following meeting minutes: February 13, 2013, budget work session; February 19, 2013, budget work session; and March 7, 2013, board meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boston.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Eubanks. It's been properly moved and second that we approve the board meeting minutes as indicated. Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
On the motion, Ms. Beck? Aye. Mr. Burrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps?
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks? Aye. Ms. Fellows?
Abstain.
Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Ms. Boston?
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Colleagues, now we will have a news break entitled Legislative Sessions in Annapolis.
What I am doing, I am passing out each of the bills in specific categories. I'm passing out Ways and Means.
If friendly high school senior Kyle Patton has an air of confidence, it's with good reason. As one of only 115 student pages serving in the Maryland General Assembly this year, Kyle has learned his legislative lessons well. Walking purposefully among the delegates, Kyle is using every moment of his 2-week stint to both serve the elected officials and witness history in the making.
What are some of the things you do for the delegates?
Majority of the time, we run small errands. It's getting coffee. We use the copier and printer in the back and over there. We sometimes bring laptops to the delegates. A couple of times I've gotten water, and then I deliver messages. It's just good to get to know and get the experience to see how the Speaker of the House and how the delegates work and debate. And then just like today, it's going to be an extremely busy day.
Why so?
Because the death penalty is coming up on the floor today.
Recommended by their guidance counselors, the 12 Prince George's student pages are all academic standouts who come to Annapolis for various reasons, some of them political and some sartorial.
What actually attracted me to it in the first place was this nice, stylish blazer that we got. And, when I did some more research and then learned about it, just an opportunity to get a chance not to only meet my representatives, but all the representatives in the entire state, and, just to see what they do.
These are students, many of them are National Honor Society, many of them are involved in various civic activities. They have huge grade point averages and things like that before they get here. And this is also helping them in terms of developing their personality and also their understanding of government and understanding of history. To sit here and listen to the debate on repealing the death penalty, to sit here on the debate curtailing guns, it helps them understand government. They become better voters, they become better citizens, and some of them actually participate in the process.
2 of these are third readers, so they go in volume 2 of House Third Reader. I would say the best quality for being a page is enthusiasm. Now, it's great if you know a little bit about state government before you come in as a page, but you'll learn a lot about state government once you're here. But if you come in and you're enthusiastic, you're glad to be here, all the delegates and the senators can see that quality and really gravitate to the page, and it makes a great experience for everybody.
I've never had a bad page. They are all, we say, the best and brightest in the state of Maryland, and they're all eager beavers, ready to learn. They want to get involved in everything. I know the senators would agree that really we couldn't run as smoothly without the page program.
They're on the floor, they're getting us amendments, they're making copies of things. I mean, I don't always want them working, I want them listening to debate. I mean, there's some stirring speeches, there's some great debate. For them to hear about the death penalty or gun control is terrific, So they're doing some gopher work. I don't want them getting me coffee. I'll get my own coffee or tea.
Indeed, coffee and copy making aside, the truly indelible memories from many pages are seeing the great issues of the day being debated right before their eyes.
Yesterday was the first day that we actually saw the delegates debating. And compared to the last week we were here to yesterday, it was a huge difference. And I was following the entire time. It was with the voting rights, and I was following the entire time, just going back and forth. And I told Alexis, and Alexis and I discussed it. Even my roommates, Trace and Mark, we discussed it when we got home. So that I had to say yesterday was definitely the biggest moment where it's like,
Of course, for those pages who really get the hang of the legislative ropes, the potential is there for eventually having someone fill bill books and run errands for them.
And the pagers want to do this to go on, and we're not getting any younger, so we need these pagers to come on in here and help take over what we're doing before we get in our rocking chair.
So it's a great experience, and there are a number of people who do this and come back either to work in the legislature or run for office. Everyone's always afraid to say, look, don't get too good at it because you're going to be wanting my seat.
Do you see yourself in this role as an adult? Would you yourself like to be a senator someday?
Yes, I would. Coming here just gave me an experience to see what they do on a day-to-day basis. And, I don't mind seeing myself in one of these chairs sometimes. So.
Senator Junior Doe. It has a nice ring to it. Congratulations to all our pages for the pride they bring to the Prince George's County Public Schools. This is Dave Zarin reporting.
Congratulations to those students. On March 12th, Prince George's County Board hosted a board awards ceremony. We did that to honor our students, teachers, and administrators whose academic performance have been deemed exemplary. The board congratulates the recipients for their academic performance and educational commitment. The Board of Education hosted this past week a meet and greet with the finalist candidates for superintendent that was held on Tuesday, March the 19th, to allow elected officials, labor partners, business partners, and members of the community an opportunity to meet those three finalists. The board expects to announce a new superintendent before July 1st, 2013. Please continue to check the website for updates. Today, the Morehouse College Glee Club, all African American male choir, visited Laurel and Dr. Henry A. Wise Jr. High Schools to perform a wide range of musical genres for students. This performance marks the beginning of an expanded partnership with Prince George's County Public Schools and Morehouse College. Thanks to their efforts at Laurel High School, the high school performing arts department made this happen. Kudos to our students. Congratulations to Prince George's County students who have advanced to the Destination Imagination state level competition on April 13th at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. The Destination Imagination competition targets kindergartners through college-age learners to solve creative problems that incorporate science, technology, engineering, and math. Teams of up to 7 members use a variety of important problem-solving and life-solving skills for one of 7 different challenges during a live demonstration. After the state finals, teams can possibly advance to the Destination Imagination Global Finalists in May. Over 1,100 teams from 45 states, 7 Canadian provinces, and 13 countries gather to showcase their challenge solutions. Upcoming events, please watch the website. But the Department of Curriculum and Instruction Office of Creative Arts Program is holding the 6th Annual Secondary Dance Showcase on Wednesday, March the 27th, 2013 at 7 p.m. at Laurel High School. In addition, the Drama Office is also holding the 3rd Annual Theater Festival on Tuesday, March the 26th at 6:30 at Bowie State University. On April the 11th, 2013, the system oversight meeting that we normally have has been canceled. On April the 17th, 2013, our Capital Improvement Program and Finance Audit and Budget meetings, which is a committee meeting, will be held here at Sasser at 5 p.m. On April the 25th, we will have our standard evening board meeting at 7:05. If you wish to speak at a board meeting, please call 2.5 hours prior to the meeting time. At this time, I yield to Dr. Crawley for Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board Chair Jacobs. Good evening. I would like to begin by saying thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to be considered for the position of Superintendent for Prince George's County Public Schools. As part of the selection process, I spent Tuesday meeting with county elected officials, business partners, students, parents, union representatives, and members of the community to share my vision and goals for the school system. It was truly an exciting and rewarding experience. This process has allowed us as a community to talk about the strengths of our school system as well as areas of challenge. It is also an opportunity for us as a community to renew our commitment to working together to raise the achievement of all of our students. Speaking of student achievement, the Carson Scholars Fund has recently named 3 Prince George's County Public School students as 2013 Carson Scholars. Congratulations to Cindy Diaz, Dwight Eisenhower Middle School, Benjamin Hung, Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, and Darren Lutchman, Chesapeake Math and Information Technology Academy. They joined 425 students nationwide for this honor and will be presented with $1,000 in college scholarships on April 7th during the 17th Annual Awards Banquet at Martin's West in Baltimore. 11 students will also be recognized for renewing their Carson Scholarship status by maintaining high academic standards and commitment to their communities. Congratulations to all the winners in the Prince George's Area Science Fair who represent outstanding achievement in the areas of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The Prince George's County Public Schools Science Department hosted the fair at Prince George's Community College from March 8th through the 10th. For a complete list of awards for this year's fair, please visit the PGCPS Science Department's webpage. I'd like to extend kudos to Central High School 9th grader Khalil Parker, who was invited to be a guest speaker at the 6th Annual West Point Leadership and Ethics Conference on March 8th at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. Last year, as a John Hanson French Immersion School student, he attended this conference and earned the distinction Leader Among Leaders, and ultimately won a $500 scholarship for his essay on leadership and ethics. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Central High School student Joshua Dotson for doing an outstanding job interviewing me last Monday. That visit also afforded me the opportunity to observe teachers and students working hard under the great leadership of Principal Coleman. Today, Margaret Brent Regional hosted the first Special Olympics spring event of the year as students took part in their school's Challenge Day. Join us in cheering on our student athletes as they take part in Challenge Days, the Special Olympics swim meet, and the Special Olympics Spring Games. For a listing of all events, please visit our website. Are you a graduating senior who's headed to college this fall? Please be sure to check out the 3 new scholarships being offered this year by the Prince George's County Public Schools Excellence in Education Foundation. You can visit our website for details to download an application. Please note the deadline to apply is March 27th.
Thank you, Dr. Crawley, for the superintendent's report. Colleagues, at this time, we actually have 8 registered speakers to speak on the legislative agenda item. We have a legislative update, and prior to Mr. Lucci coming forward, for those who have been registered to speak, you may speak on the topic that you have registered for. We ask that you, I'm sorry, Mr. Burrows, we ask that you use titles rather than names, and your adherence to these guidelines will ensure that public comment is smooth. Finish the sentence that you're on at the time of the buzzer. And before I'm calling up the first person, which is Ms. Janice Hagee, co-chair, Citizens for an Elected Board. And just before you speak, I want to yield a point of personal privilege to Mr. Burrows.
I just wanted to recognize I have Principal Mr. Wendell Coleman in the audience from Oxon Hill Middle School. He's doing a phenomenal job at creating a college-going culture. He took just about almost every single student in the school to a college, whether it was College Park, UMBC, Bowie State. You know, you're really turning around the school. Teachers are working hard. You're working hard. We all really appreciate the work that you're doing at this turnaround school. So I just wanted to recognize you publicly and thank you for your leadership.
And Mr. Coleman's colleagues, Mr. Robinson, Ms. Gardner, Ms. Dr. Dean, I'm sorry, Tori Walker. So all the turnaround principals are here this evening because they'll be part of the presentation. But thank you for calling out Wendell because he's awesome, but they all are awesome.
Well, since we're naming principals, we also have the blue ribbon principal in the audience, Mr. Campbell. But also I wanted to recognize Dr. Alvin Thornton, who is known for the infamous Thornton Report, which has been the impetus for funding in the state of Maryland, not just Prince George's County.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Jacobs and members of the Prince George's County Board of Education. I'm Janice Hagee, co-chair of the Citizens for an Elected Board, a coalition of civic organizations, school employee unions, parental groups, interest groups, and business partners. We are opposed, Citizens for an Elected Board is opposed to the county executive's proposal to revise the structure of how our schools are governed. We see it as a blatant political grab and will constantly work in opposition. This proposal is undemocratic and raises real questions about civil rights issues. It undercuts the voice of the public who have made decisions about its representatives who will govern the school district and decisions about how our schools will be, how policies will be implemented. This has been done without any meaningful input and breaks all the rules in that there were no public hearings, there have been no town halls, no input from the public. It is a process that is being attempted to be put in place without telling the public and parents how this process will be different. How will it provide real solutions to the issues that our students, staff, and the community face with regard to education? What we do want is an effective board that is accountable, transparent, and constantly working to prepare our students to compete in this global world and to prepare them for jobs of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hagee. Our next speaker is Shirley Adams, ASPE Local 2250, President.
Good evening, Madam Chair and school board members. My name is Shirley Adams, and I'm the president of ASPE Local 2250. I would like to read an email Local 2250 sent to our delegates and senators today opposing the takeover of the Prince George's County Public Schools by the county executive. To the Prince George's County delegates and senators, on Sunday, March 17, 2013, ASPE Local 2250 learned through the newspaper that County Executive Rashawn Baker was planning a takeover of the county school system through the county's delegates and senators. Needless to say, Local 2250 was completely unaware of the county executive's plans. At no time did anyone from the county executive office contact Local 2250 for input or even give Local 2250 a courtesy notice of these plans. Even today, Local 2250 has only seen unofficial drafts of the proposed legislation. Based on the review of these unofficial documents, Local 2250 is opposed to any legislation that places the school system under the control of the county executive. Under this legislation, the county executive would have nearly absolute power over all public schools with the sole authority to hire a superintendent, who in turn would have the power to close schools, fire teachers and employees, and abrogate labor contracts. Under this legislation, the county executive would add 6 appointed members to the board in addition to the elected Board of Education. How does this improve the education system? All you have done is create a very large advisory committee of the appointed and elected members that has no ability to affect change in the education system, and left the real control of the education system in the hands of a county executive and a hand-picked superintendent. This legislation comes as a surprise attack from the county executive. Why did the county executive wait 10 weeks in the General Assembly session to introduce this plan? Why not openly discuss this with the community weeks or even months ago? Why not hold community meetings, discuss his ideas and plans with all stakeholders and partners in the education system, and try to reach a consensus on what is good for the children of our system? There are so many unanswered questions which cannot be properly addressed before the General Assembly ends its session in the next several weeks. Local 2250 urges and requests that all of our delegates and senators oppose any legislation that will place the welfare of our children and workforce under one person's control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Henry Armwood.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Henry Armwood. Now that I'm on this side of the petition, you cannot tell me to shush anymore or behave myself. I'm here to speak out against Mr. Baker or the executive's proposed legislation and ask the legislature to vote against these amendments. I've been a supporter of Mr. Baker. I actually believe he is sincere in his desire to help the school system. But we need school governance that is not dependent on one man who will have to leave office before the job is done. I am disappointed by the way he has done this. He has lied to the electorate about his intentions. I have heard him say directly that the board was doing a good job and he only wanted to collaborate with the board to improve the schools. This is undemocratic. It is disrespectful to the citizens of this county. This is an unprecedented power grab. It was done literally in the dark of night in such a manner to prevent public debate, and input. The emergency was that the executive is angry that the board has done its duty under law to select a superintendent after conducting a national search using a premier search firm to research, do background checks, investigations that included interviewing associates, verifying credentials. He wants to make that decision alone. Who is he going to choose? What is his vision? He will determine the salary of employees, eliminating negotiated agreements solely by himself. This proposal is so extreme that he has to violate many statutes of Maryland law regarding school governance and oversight. These proposals are always directed at majority-minority districts. What is it about the black electorate that our politicians feel that we are incompetent except when we vote for them? We need to continue progress, improving school systems. School systems, like children, need consistent vision and stability. Incremental improvement is frustrating. It's slow, but it builds a foundation and it works. There are no quick fixes. Look at D.C., Philadelphia, Chicago, and Detroit. Is that what we want for our county? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armwood. Kenneth Haynes, President, Prince George's County Educators Association.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. On behalf of the 9,000 employees represented by the Prince George's County Educators Association, we wish to go on the record as categorically opposed to the county executive's proposal to make the superintendent of the Prince George's County Public Schools a cabinet post in the county government. What events have transpired that could precipitate or justify such drastic measures? To paraphrase an old Wendy's commercial, where's the crisis? The Board of Education has been recognized nationally for transparency in the budgeting process, having won for 3 consecutive years the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from Government Finance Officers Association. Management and labor have participated in courageous discussions on improving practice in the classroom and establishing more rigorous methods of evaluation. The Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, has been praising our school system all across this nation as a model for collaboration around the best interests of children. For as long as I can remember, and I've been around a little while, Prince George's County has made steady, incremental progress each and every year on state-mandated assessments, in spite of the fact that over the last decade, our local county contribution to the school system has fallen from 49% to 38% of the total Board of Education budget. Does our school system face challenges? Absolutely, many. But the critics would be hard-pressed to find another school system in this nation that is coping so successfully with those challenges. So, how will making the superintendent a political employment of the county executive resolve the problem of the revolving door at the superintendent's office? If the county executive has total control of the purse strings, how will the Board of Education be able to implement needed policy reforms in the absence of resources? How does diluting the Board of Education with so many appointed positions increase responsiveness to constituent concerns? These are but a few of our concerns about the poorly conceived amendments to legislation that are being ramrodded through Annapolis with no public debate. The vetting process has been totally circumvented. Along with a growing number of groups in Prince George's County, PGCEA stands in solidarity with the Board of Education in your opposition to placing far too much power in the office of the county executive by eliminating the checks and balances on executive power that are so revered in our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Deborah Sell.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Deborah Sell, and you can see I have a cold. As an education advocate, I have often challenged our Board of Education on issues concerning the supports given to our special needs students. However, I have found that the majority of them have always been attentive to my concerns and genuinely want to provide a quality education for each and every student in the school system. I was not overly concerned when Ms. Valentino Smith suggested that the state legislature form a task force to look at school governance because I felt that we had room for improvement. However, I am deeply concerned with the amendments that have been proposed, which call for the county executive to take control over the school system. These last-minute maneuvers have the effect of disenfranchising the citizens and electorate of our county. But more than that, they remove the safeguards that we parents and students feel that we have in addressing any educational concerns that we might have. I feel that we have been betrayed and believe that such a radical change in school governance should only be taken after careful and thoughtful deliberation and ultimately should be decided by the voters in a general referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sell. Mark Spencer.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Spencer. I'm a longtime county resident and an attorney practicing law here in Prince George's County. And I'm testifying this evening in opposition to County Executive Rashawn Baker's announced plan to take over control and governance of the county school board by way of House Bill 1107. Under HB 1107 and the amendments that were disclosed to the public only in the past few days, the county executive would exercise nearly absolute power over all public schools because of his sole authority to hire and fire the superintendent of schools. Because the superintendent would serve at the pleasure of Mr. Baker, the county executive would ultimately control any decision by the superintendent to close schools, fire teachers, and potentially eliminate labor contracts. The power to control all financial decisions would also rest in the office of the county executive. If enacted, HB 1107 would render the elected members of the school board mere advisors and observers without any meaningful tools to address the concerns of constituents from their respective districts. Curiously, HB 1107 shifts nearly the entire responsibility to the school board for raising academic achievement and improving parent involvement in school affairs, but fails to provide for any staffing or other resources to empower the school board to successfully carry out this mission. Obviously, the bill has been rushed before the legislature at the 11th hour to prevent any meaningful community discussion or input, and to avoid any real opportunity for concerned residents to raise their voices in opposition to this takeover. This bill is unfair, unwise, is seriously anti-democratic, and smells of a naked power grab. We should all oppose HB 1107, and I urge the board members and residents to demand that our state legislators reject this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Janice Hall. Ernest Moore, President, Prince George's County Parents and Teachers Association Council.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Ernest Moore. I'm the president of Prince George's County PTA Council. I represent all the PTAs within the Prince George's County school system, and we actually provide leadership and support for those individual organizations. I'm here today to actually speak against this individual proposal in reference to this amendment for HB 1107. Over the last several days, we have watched this played out in the media without enough information to know exactly what direction or what their overall intent was. Until the last few days, we just received some information, enough for us to read exactly what's going on with this amendment. We actually looked at a first 5-page amendment for the task force, and then we looked at an additional 56 pages of amendments. That is appalling to me, especially when something did not come across us as an input or any type of public forum. As representatives for our parents and our PTAs, we're looking for people to be transparent. We're looking for people to be open. We're looking for us to be able to give our individual input. And we cannot do that in the dark. We represent too much for our individual children in our county, so we're looking for our individual leadership to help us to be able to move forward. As I stated earlier, we are actually caught in the blind when it comes to this individual issue. We're here to support leadership in moving forward. And the only way for us to move forward, we have to move forward together. We cannot do it by ourselves. One of the things I've learned since I moved in Prince George's County is that we do not have an issue of resources. We don't. We got an issue of unity. Until we come together, we cannot move this forward. So again, I've opposed this individual legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Colleagues, that concludes our list of speakers on this agenda item. And with that, I ask Mr. I'm sorry, did I have? Oh, no, I think I had a speaker. Ms. Sproul? I think you were on. Give me a second. Melody Sproul?
Good afternoon, Board and Chair and my neighbors. I am here. Wasn't planning to come today. However, I made several calls today. I made a lot of calls today to the delegates in the Senate offices. I asked a lot of the leaders whether they were for or against the House Bill 1107, and some had no comment. But there was one who had a comment that wasn't very nice, and that was from Mr. Paul Pinsky's office. And Mr. Paul Pinsky's office eventually hung up on me, and actually I was very polite. Normally I'm not, and I will just tell you, normally I'm not that polite when I'm advocating. I guess I have an issue with that because the first thing is love. I was at my son's school, so I wasn't able to really speak. However, how am I able to trust a senator or a delegate or a county executive who make decisions deceitfully to me, because I went to all the meetings and this was never mentioned, not one single time. But the first is love. I don't care how many initials you have behind your name. The first thing to me is love. So that was the first problem I have. The second problem I have, if this bill passes, and I guarantee you this, there are going to be two things. I'm going to pull my son, and I'm going to take some of my friends with me, and they're all top students, and I can guarantee that. Or two, I am going to sue for interest and interest test, because I want to know what interest do you have in this. I am concerned. This was done in the dark of the night, very deceitful. I was really upset today regarding how I was treated. And I'm hoping that you guys really fight, because I'm going to fight as well. And I'm hoping you guys are in it all the way. I hope you're in it all the way, because I'm in it all the way. I made calls. I made a lot of calls. I spent all day calling. And there was only one person who was stamped. There was only one person who was stamped, and that was Mr. Pinsky's office, and they weren't nice to me. And I'm assuming they weren't nice because they're part of this bill. It has his name all over it. And I'm just letting everyone know it has his name all over it. That's all I have to say. I hope you're all fighting, and I'll see you Saturday if you're there. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lucci?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Prince George's County Board of Education. What a difference a week makes, right? So the first two matters on your agenda have been withdrawn in Annapolis, and so you may just, there's no reason to take any further action on those. The third one, though, however, is very live. House Bill 1107 yesterday passed the House of Delegates in the current task force form without the amendments, and it's now in the property of the State Senate of Maryland. Yesterday, the County Executive's Office released the 55 pages of amendments that I have looked at, and I'll try and summarize them for you, but to be able to summarize 55 pages in a few minutes is a very difficult thing to do. The board, under these amendments, if they were to be adopted would expand by 6 people to a total of 16 people, including the 10 you have now and 6 more. Not all would be voting, but they would all be there at the dais. The selection of the superintendent would shift from the board to the county executive. The county executive, he would serve at the county executive's pleasure, although it also says there's a 4-year term, so that's kind of an internal contradiction there. With regard to the board's current budget authority, that would go to the superintendent, except that the board would be able, by a 2/3 vote, to change categories 1% one way or the other, the 9 different budget categories that you have. With regard to your personnel powers, those would shift exclusively to the superintendent. The remaining powers that would be in the hands of the board would be parental engagement, academic policy, and curriculum policy. Although, as you know, the biggest policy document that the board adopts is the budget. And so without the budget, you don't really have much authority with regard to the policy. There's a lot of new language in there that's assigned to the board in terms of I would call it jargon, academic jargon, in terms of things to work on. But those are all in terms of an advisory capacity. The provision says that the superintendent has ultimate say with regard to wages. And the way it's written, I don't know if it was intended that way, but the way it's written does raise questions about whether that would preempt collective bargaining agreements and whether it would give the superintendent sole discretion to make wage decisions for the employees of the school system. So the Senate is now the next ones to act, and they can adopt these amendments or not, or some other set if they want to. And then it goes back to the House of Delegates, where the House delegation must then agree to the amendments or not agree to the amendments, or have their own set of amendments. If they have their own set of amendments and there's a disagreement in the form between the House version and the Senate version, it goes to a conference committee. The General Assembly adjourns on April 8th at midnight, Monday, April 8th, so we have about 15 more days left of the General Assembly session. The other unusual thing is the House delegation is going to be holding a hearing this Saturday morning, 9 a.m., room 150 of the Low House Office Building, a public hearing on 1107 and the amendments. They've invited only 2 persons to testify, those being the county executive and the chair of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Other individuals and organizations may submit written testimony, but there will be no opportunity to present oral testimony to the delegation. This is unusual because the actual bill is still in the possession of the Senate, and yet the House is having a hearing, but I guess the idea is that there's not too many Saturdays left before the General Assembly adjourns. So that's basically the situation. That's a brief description of the bill. There are many parts within the bill that contradict internally. Many parts of it are ambiguous. Many parts of it are unenforceable. But I assume the legislature will look at those amendments and either and put their own brand on them if they do decide to go forward with them. So that's my report. The only other thing I can report on tonight is the House Bill 1108 with regard to requiring that turf fields be built at every high school in Prince George's County. That bill had a hearing scheduled before the House Ways and Means Committee. That hearing was canceled. The bill was then re-referred to the Appropriations Committee, where no hearing has been scheduled yet. And so that has been in the standing committees of the House for about 4 weeks since it was voted out by the delegation, and we'll see what happens from there. And that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci. At this time, colleagues, if there are any questions with regard to House Bill 1107. I guess the question is, since it, Mr. Eubanks?
Mr. Lucci, you said that individuals could submit written information since there are only going to be 2 speakers that day.
Correct.
We need to have it on record exactly to who or what phone number, what email address, so that people can do that.
Okay, it's PG2 at mlis.state.md.us. PG2 at mlis.state.md.us.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Lucci, I have some questions for you, and you might not be able to answer all these questions, I understand. Just help me understand the bill, if you would. So some of the rationale that I've read in the newspaper lately is that the reason why the county executive has introduced this bill is because he wanted to see achievement yesterday. But under this bill, from what I read, all academic policy and all of the academic piece of this is still left to the school board to do. Can you explain the rationale there?
No.
Okay. My next question. The other piece of this that I heard that was, the county executive's rationale, or supporters' rationale, however you want to phrase it, was that, trying to be diplomatic, was that our financial house is not in order here. And so I think to myself as a board member, we clearly need to do more for our employees financially, but we just did 2% raises. We're negotiating other things in the contract. We're making progress, and we have a surplus. And, with all due respect, I'm getting calls from county government workers, and they're receiving 5 furlough days, and they're in a deficit. So I say deficit, 5 furlough days versus a surplus, and some sort of raises. So I just want to, if you can help me understand, you're the lobbyist, I'm not the expert. If you could help me understand, I guess, the financial rationale behind that as well.
Well, I mean, the experts are the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States. They gave this board an award for the transparency in the way that the budget is presented. And that's not given away easily. So I think that's a real testament to the board and the school system and how it protects the funds that are given to it by the public.
So if it's not academics and it's not the budget, I'm just a little confused. I mean, please help me understand.
I wish I could, Mr. Burrows. There's a limit to what I could do.
Okay. Well, if you please find out, please, I would like to see a report back on my questions, because I would really like to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Higgins?
Thank you very much, and I apologize for being about 15, 20 minutes late. I had a meeting I had to go to. I appreciate my colleagues questioning and wondering about this bill, because I think the points that you raised were very valuable. And I guess following Mr. Burrows' lead, have an additional question, and that's that I'm wondering whether the authors of this bill or the county executive were aware that the Prince George's County School Board was one of 3 finalists in the nation in 2012 for getting an award for school board governance from the Council of Urban Boards of Education, which is part of the National School Board Association. Are they aware of that?
I think that's unlikely, but that's certainly something I'm going to make them aware of the next
Well,
few
thank
days.
you. Yeah, we will help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other comments? Do you need a motion? Any papers?
I move that we oppose Bill HB 1107.
Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that the Board of Education will oppose House Bill 1107. Any further discussion?
With the proposed amendments, I suspect.
With that, I'm sorry.
Because previously you had opposed the bill, so.
I'm sorry. I move to oppose Bill HB 1107 and its 52-page amendments.
Second. I second it.
It's been properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
I have one more question.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Lucci, when this bill first came to me, it was 4 pages, and now it's 50-something pages?
I think 55 is what I counted.
55 pages. And also the subject has changed. Can you explain how in an app, it's almost a completely different bill. So what are the, I guess, legislative implications that are involved with that, if you understand my question?
Sure. Well, the Constitution says that every bill must have one subject. And so the Attorney General may be asked whether the subject that the bill have before is the same subject as the subject of these amendments. And I think they're very different subjects. Also, the Prince George's House delegation has its own internal rules, which are still enforceable, that every bill receive a hearing in the county, or else unless there's 2/3 of the vote to waive that. Now, House Bill 1107 received the hearing in the county in December, but what we have here, son of House Bill 1107, was certainly not recognized at all by any of that substance at that public hearing. So I guess that raises a question about whether the actual bill really did have a hearing in the county.
And so why would that happen? Why would supporters do that? Why not enter in a bill at the beginning of session, have a community debate and dialogue, take it, hold the community forum, be very upfront, open, and transparent about it to begin with? Why? I mean, help me understand the rationale behind adding, 50 pages of amendments on this late before session's about to end. I mean, just help me understand.
I mean, I can't speak for the county executive on that. Someone will have to ask him why he would wait till now. I don't know what his motives were.
And also,
Mr. Lucci? Hi.
Oh, hi.
So, in terms of what you just said about the one subject rule, that would then force, now that the bill is going over to the Senate, they can't handle that bill in that format. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that's up to their opinion from the Attorney General. I'm just saying that it's questionable.
Well, as I understand it, it is the Attorney General's opinion that that's not permissible. So if that's the case, is it possible that the Senate staff could draft a new bill so that they can get around that particular opinion?
Yes, it's possible to introduce a brand new bill, but because it's so late in the session, it would require a suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 vote by the House or the Senate, who's ever introduced the bill, right when it's introduced, which at this late date could be done, but it's another major hurdle.
So knowing that the bill is going to be going to the Senate, is it possible if there was someone who were interested in the movement of the bill or whether or not a new bill is introduced in the Senate, could they contact their senator?
Oh, sure. I'm sure that would be a good idea.
And how would they do that?
301-858-3000 and ask for your senator's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci. We have a properly moved motion that has been seconded, and we're still in discussion. And so let me just say that a lot goes into running a school system, especially a large urban school district like Prince George's County Public Schools. There are many issues and views to consider and very difficult decisions that must be made. And I can assure you, I have said it several times, that after 23 years of working in the second largest Department of Corrections in the state of Maryland, that this is still the hardest work I have ever done. Our school system has been transparent and open to the public for feedback at every major decision that we have made, and most recently in the current superintendent search for Prince George's County Public Schools. Despite the rhetoric that we constantly hear, our students are excelling in about every single area and have been doing so every single year. Maryland is not number one for 5 years in a row because of high-performing districts going from a 92% to 95%. It is because of Prince George's County Public School students who have shown steady, continuous progress. It is an insult to our employees to suggest that they are not doing what they need to do every single day in the classroom to help our students. And yes, we recognize that we are not where we want to be, but it is unconscionable to look at how our unions have worked with the administration over the last several years, where we had $300 and $400 million in cuts, and they have been steadfast. Collective bargaining is at the core of union work in Prince George's County, and we believe in it. I was disappointed at the magnitude by which this bill seeks control over our schools, particularly without any public engagement or an opportunity to at least weigh in the public. It is important to note that the education governing structure in our county has shifted numerous times in the past 10 years, and the current structure is the only one that we can show has demonstrated the kinds of academic improvements over the last several years. Let me address that for a minute. Under a process by which you work at the will of a person or an entity, we've had how many superintendents over the last decade? One of our employees told me that she's been here 14 years and have had nearly 7 superintendents. If you work at the pleasure of a person who's elected every 4 years, does that guarantee continuity and sustainability in leadership of the superintendent if you're working at their pleasure? There must be a way for us to do this right. When I think about how this is being played out in the public, I really want to take the high road, because this is not about adult-driven decisions. Our children do not deserve to be played out in the public as inferior. Every time, you can clap. They do not, because they hear the news just like we do. And at some point, we have to balance owning what's ours and at the same time recognizing that they have been showing steady progress. And so I have personally reached out to our county executive, and to date he has agreed to have a meeting. And I can assure you that I will be talking about children, not personal interests of this board chair, because I have been here going on 7 years. And the reason why this is the hardest work I've ever done is because our school system has for years been the place where elected officials, unfortunately, have used to gain what they needed to stay elected. I'm saying it. And the board started pushing back and saying, no, I am not going to let that child jump another child who's in line for that position in a school. And it's hard when you've been used to being able to use the school district in a way to meet your own needs. That doesn't meet the needs of kids, and I don't support that. I'm not saying that to be personal. I'm saying it because it's important to recognize that our school system will not move forward as long as we are satisfied with pockets of success. And pockets of success can only happen when places and people, when people in places like that control who gets in what programs and who gets what opportunities. Maryland is also seventh, for the 7th year in a row, for the College Board, top in the country for AP classes. And that is not because of other school districts who are offering them. It's because Prince George's County is trying our very best to do the best we can for our children. And I'll say and end with this. I commit to the community and I commit to my colleagues that I will do everything in my power to make the best choice in education for our children and the best structure to determine that. Ms. Jackson, call the roll.
On the motion, Ms. Beck?
I need clarity on the motion. It's my understanding we currently have a opposition to 1107 and have the, I'm uncertain which set of amendments were adopted, because I have seen several formally and informally over the past maybe 72 hours, and I oppose all of the series of amendments.
Ms. Beck, can I change my amendment?
Yeah, that would be helpful for me.
Yes, I can do that. I move to oppose HB 1107 and all amendments to that bill. Does that work?
That's very helpful to me.
Thank you.
All as of 8:15 tonight, right?
As of 8:15 tonight.
And thereafter.
Thereafter.
And probably there.
Well, shouldn't say that.
I'm sorry, second that?
I find that very helpful. Aye.
Mr. Barrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps?
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks? Aye. Ms. Fellows?
No.
Ms. Higgins?
Absolutely. Aye.
Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Ms. Boston?
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you very much. See you in Annapolis.
Will do. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Yield to Dr. Crawley.
Thank you, Board Jacobs. We'll move forward with our discussion item. Our discussion item for this evening will focus on our school improvement grants and our FAST-2 data. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Dr. Arbogast, our Acting Deputy Superintendent of Academics, who will provide a brief overview of these items.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the work continues. We hear a lot about persistently low-performing schools, but we rarely act on persistently low-performing schools. We had a catalyst 3 years ago, the School Improvement Grant, SIG 1003G, and we had a mandate to change 4 schools. And the money was important, but the urgency was more important. And we've learned several lessons, and we thought about how we wanted to present tonight. And I want to say a few things, and then we're going to show you, rather than talk all night, we're actually going to show you a video. And we hope you enjoy it. And we have invited all the principals from the turnaround schools. Dr. Ryans, the instructional director, is unable to be here. He had a death in his extended family, so he's back in Ohio. And I'll introduce all the people at the end of the video. But this is what I wanted to say. Here's what we've learned. Partners matter. Our state partners and our nonprofit partners. Focus on instruction matters. Culture matters. Leadership matters. Teachers matter. Parents matter. And the district support matters. your support of this effort matters. We had a will, we had an urgency, and we had the right supports, and we're pretty happy with the way things are going. Can we show the video now, please? What do I do?
Greetings. My name is Ed Ryans, Director of Turnaround Schools. Turnaround Schools, as learning organizations, is our collective vision. In all plans, actions, and interventions, we hear people asking why, what if, what do the data show? Turnaround Schools making a difference. There is a can-do spirit that flows from tangible progress in student engagement and student achievement. We never hear fatalism or resignation. We hear educators exuding confidence in their ability to make a difference through concerted team effort. Our task to dramatically increase student achievement in our persistently low achieving schools has been a challenging yet rewarding journey. To better understand our perspective of the work, you will hear from key stakeholders: principals, teachers, students, and parents around the following themes: the level of support received at each school, the impact of external partnerships, perceptions of the schools, professional practice, and support moving forward. I thank you for the opportunity to engage in the dialogue about this most important work, and I look forward to your continued support of our schools.
I'm Paul Dunford. I'm with the Breakthrough Center at the Maryland State Department of Education. My primary responsibility is in leadership development and creating a pipeline of aspiring principals for turnaround work. We launched the Breakthrough Center at the Maryland State Department of Education. It was a significant organizational and operational shift, looking at high visibility, high priority, and integrated public and private services for our lowest achieving schools. We interface with Maryland State Department of Ed and Prince George's County Public Schools. Our emphasis is on building capacity so that we not only achieve turnaround, but we sustain turnaround. Our relationship is personalized and customized and is all around the work that's necessary to support long-term change in our turnaround schools.
I received a lot of academic support because when I first came here, I wasn't all that good in math and reading and all the other core choices. But now, since my teachers helped me and guided me along the way, I'm better at them. Like math is my strongest subject. It used to be my weakest, but now it's my strongest.
Last year, we became a turnaround school, and we received the additional resources in terms of money. We also received additional positions, which has really helped with character education. It's helped with behavior. Also, the assistance of the coaches with the academics.
Particularly being in the math department, I received the supports of collaborative planning. And so that's when our team of math teachers comes together every other day. And we work with our instructional coach as well as our academic dean, Mr. Nance. And we sit down as a team and we go through and learn different ways to teach math. So how you engage the students more, how we can get them doing more hands-on things, how do you turn over a classroom to a group of 30 students and really give them the confidence to make the classroom their own.
Lo primero y con lo que estoy muy contenta es porque aquí la escuela tiene un intérprete que es la señora Rosado. Por eso estoy feliz porque los 6 años anteriores que mi hijo estuvo en elemental nunca hubo un intérprete, lo cual creo que es muy importante y hace muchísima falta para nosotros los hispanos.
She said that the first thing that she is grateful for is that in this school we have an interpreter. She says that the first 6 years of her child's education there was no interpreter available, and so this is very important for the Hispanic parents.
Some of the main supports that we've received is, of course, working very closely with the turnaround office. I love the fact that I can pick up the phone and call Dr. Ryans at any time and be able to get that real personal support, especially with the things that go on at our school. We've also received a lot of instructional support from the turnaround office with the instructional coaches that they have, and the whole turnaround office has been incredible with grants and helping us work through things with the state. I mean, it's just been a terrific support. We've also received a lot of support around staffing. The certain positions like the student advocates have been invaluable this year with the relationships that they've been able to build with our kings and queens, the positive behavior intervention person, our psychologist, social worker. All those persons are just critical to what we do here at our school.
The impact is that we have a lot of outside entities that come in, mentoring programs, male and female, that basically it's actually helping some of the students, because we have a lot of inner city kids who really need the extra help. Also, you know, we deal with a whole bunch of single parents who need the extra help. So a lot of the partnerships that come in really help out with a lot of the learning and help the tools to help some of the kids to grow, to become better citizens.
We have a partnership with Mosaica in which they come in and they are in charge of our collaborative planning process in which they use CFIP. Something that is solely done by them in regards to preparing our teachers for looking at their data, for analyzing their data in order to make better instructional practices, in order to look at deficiencies in their area of expertise, whatever discipline that they in fact teach, and to improve upon those qualities. And it's a partnership that's growing. It's definitely something that we have to revisit and maybe retweak from time to time, but it's something that's definitely can be impactful if utilized in the correct manner.
Before this, I certainly had vague ideas of what I wanted to see and hopes and dreams for my classroom, but the supports have made those hopes and dreams, start to come out in actual practice. And so no longer do they just exist as an idea for what a lesson might look like, but we get to talk about the best way to execute that lesson, how to implement it, what really will students need, what kind of furthering questions we're going to have to ask. And so it takes these more abstract ideas we might all have on our own and adds a real degree of practicality and makes it much more tangible and helps us improve our practice in the classroom.
I didn't know they was going to do more stuff to make the classes more fun and add another mod so we can get our homework done and a whole bunch of new teachers. I didn't know that was going to happen. So actually it is very different. And last year everybody used to fight and stuff, and now it's like nobody fights at all.
It's different because the teachers really do care. They want to teach us. They could be out doing other things, but they choose to teach us. They want to help the youth learn, grow, and prosper. So, and then we have a better environment at this school. We're safer.
Both of my daughters went to Cora Rice for the elementary school year, so coming over here, I think it's the older kids and kind of the environment. I thought we were going to encounter a lot of behavioral issues, disruptive students, issues in the community and things of that nature. I think once they got inside, it was almost like a bubble. It was like what was going on the outside wasn't necessarily affecting the inside.
Much different, because the first year that our previous child went, it was really good. They had a really good principal. In the middle of the school year, he was taken somewhere else. The next year, things kind of went down, but thank God she had a good foundation. So we were a bit skeptical about sending our son Brandon here, but we said we would give it a chance, see how it works. Turned out when we came here for the orientation, we were like, yes, this is going to be a good thing, a good environment. The teachers were into, you can tell they were into the kids and were into the education piece of helping the kids, and that's what we liked. So just from the beginning, when we came to the orientation, we knew he was going to be taken care of.
One of the things I'll always remember is working with somebody from the Maryland State Department, and I was teaching fractions, and I've always learned fractions one way, like, oh, we just simply change this into an improper fraction, and we tell the students how to add and subtract from here. And she kind of challenged and pushed me and saying, you know, there's always more than one way to learn a content, and so having that kind of like impacted my way of thinking. I always have to think outside the box when I'm teaching. I can't necessarily say, oh, this is the way I learned it, or this is the way they're supposed to learn it in a book. I have to think and see what is best for my students in terms of different real world applications they have or different strategies to use, and it's probably impacted most my thinking about how to go about teaching a lesson.
Our teaching continue to change as we continue to improve on data-driven instruction, focusing on students' achievement through data analysis, using appropriate instructional material, and focus on the planning and delivery of instruction.
We push our teachers to become teacher leaders, so they're constantly teaching, they're constantly learning, so it becomes a joy just to walk in. We've seen a lot of growth, in particular some of our MSmart teachers that came in with us the first year, and how they've grown and become truly educators.
If I could choose one thing that is needed in order for us to sustain the work, it would be priority staffing. No matter what we think, a principal and administrators, community support, parent partners, those things are very important to any school, but for the schools that have been chronically and persistently low achieving, you have got to have the best teacher sitting in front of the students that need it the most.
I think it's just really important that you get turnaround principals, executive cabinet, school board members all in the same room at least once a year to really talk about where we're going, where we're trying to go, what we need, to all be on the same page, just to have a dialogue. And I think through that dialogue, then just a litany of ideas come, and then people become more creative. So I just think that that's what we need. We need access, dialogue, communication to keep the process and progress going.
No, wait, until I introduce them. And they can all come up, and then you can ask them questions. Dr. Marla Dean, Principal Drew Freeman, Dr. Michael Robinson, Principal Thomas Johnson, Wendell Coleman, Principal Oxon Hill Middle, Tori Walker, Resident Principal, Hillary Gardner, Principal Benjamin Stoddard, and I also like to bring up Bob Glasscock, who is our point of contact at MSDE. So, Val, you can applaud. Oh, is Fletcher? Oh, and Fletcher James, Principal of Thurgood Marshall. We'll open up to questions.
Thank you so much. Oh, don't be nervous. You have to come up because we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to yield to, did you buzz in, Ms. Waller? Ms. Waller.
Yes, I wanted to just start off and express my thanks to each of you all. Last fall, I was at a presentation that was done by Mr. Ryans, and I think several of you were down in Nashville. And just to hear the stories of where you came from, the hardships that you all encountered the first year with the students of changing the climate, the thought processes and everything that you all have overcome to instill in those young people, to help them know that, and to believe in them and let them know that there's a world out there for them and that you all are preparing for their future. I just want to commend you. I know we could ask a whole lot about academic data and, different things like that, but I've heard your story. I believe in you. I think it's just great. It's wonderful. Keep the work up. This community appreciates what you all are doing. And I know that you're young, and you all are going to have these young people that are going to come back to you all and say thank you. I mean, it was hard on the young people because you had to change their mindset. I mean, they didn't want to work. They probably didn't want to come to school. They didn't want to study. But you all gave them the love, the attention, and instilled in them the values. You're preparing them for high school. Dr. Arbogast, thank you also for your vision for instilling what you've done with this group of leaders. So I wanted to say that, and then I can come back and talk about data or whatever, but we really appreciate what you all are doing. Thank you.
Ms. Higgins?
Yes, one of the principals, and I think you're standing right in front, so I apologize for calling on you, but you had talked about having a discussion with the board, and I know you didn't expect, but this really is a real opportunity to hear from you all in terms of what are important things to make sure I could ask what are the two things that are critical, but I think in the video you talked about, safety and teachers, so I don't want to just limit it to, pick two things that are the most important. But what kind of things are important to make sure that we dialogue so we take the expertise that you all have and continue to share that with your colleagues? Could you say your name again, please?
Principal of Drew Freeman.
Yes,
Marla
thank
Dean.
you, Ms. Dean.
Thank you for having us. First, I would like to say our colleague, Ebony Cross, also had a death in her family, so she couldn't be with us tonight. And the first thing I would like to say is just the support that we've received from each other has been tremendous, from Dr. Ryans and from Dr. Arbogast. We want to publicly thank each other and those two individuals for the support that they've given us. I think Ms. Garner said it best. The staffing priority status is essential to the work that we do, and how we can be creative in that process is one of the key points that we need to have dialogue about.
What do you mean when you say creative in that process?
There are provisions.
I'm sorry to do this to you, but it's very valuable, and we probably won't be back until next year. So,
there are provisions and policies that I believe and intend are very equitable, but sometimes means that some of the best teachers don't get to some of the most needy schools, and I think we just want to figure out a way to address that. I think the district has come a long way in being creative on that issue, but that needs to be an ongoing dialogue continuously in conjunction with PGCPS, who also has come to the table to assist us in this regard. But we really want to continue that dialogue so that the best teachers get to the neediest school in turnaround schools, but also in other areas, in other communities.
Any of the other colleagues in terms of what would be important to discuss so we're all on the same page?
Yes,
sir, if you could say your name.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Wendell Coleman, principal at Oxon Hill Middle School, and also the priority staffing piece. And one of the things that we used to do is have a transfer consortium, and that's where teachers would get a chance to come out and meet principals and get a chance to get a feel for different schools. And for some reason, we haven't done that in the last few years. And so I was really hopeful that we would get a chance to do that again this year, because sometimes even in our own system, our schools are still seen as places that aren't productive places to work, aren't good places to be. And so, but when I get a chance to talk to a teacher and be able to share the great things that we're doing, it gives me a chance to change minds. But without getting that opportunity to get in front of these teachers, it's hard to be able to, get them to know that we exist. And so this opportunity is fantastic. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that when we have not extra positions, but positions like our social worker, our student advocates, so many of our schools, our students are facing just crisis after crisis after crisis. We are seeing more students who need real mental health services, that my social worker is actually inundated with help. And then once you build the culture and climate where students feel comfortable talking to you, even more things come out. And so we need to continue to have those types of services and even more services available. Another critical thing for us, for students at our schools, is the summertime, when students aren't in session. Our students need creative and productive places to go, and we are willing to be there. We have staff that are willing to come and willing to program for them, but we again need that support, that financial support, to be able to hold these programs, because we know when students aren't in session, different things get to happen. I mean, these are active students, and they're going to find things to do, and I'd much rather them be with me somewhere where I know that they're going to be safe and supported than just out in the street. Many times when I ask us, is there a time limit? I'm sorry. Many times when I ask...
Keep it under an hour, Wendell.
An hour? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Many times when I ask my students what their plans are for the summer, they just look at me like, well, I'm not doing anything. And that's not acceptable for me. And so, we're going to plan something. If it can't be 8 weeks, we're going to try to do a few weeks and then have a little boot camp for our students that are incoming, because now that we have a couple years under our belt, our feeder schools, students are now excited to come to our school because now they have heard better things about our schools. So we have parents now that are excited to send our students. We have other students that are excited to come And so, you know, we have the capability to do it. We just need to keep that support. We have the ability to do it. We just have to keep that support coming, okay?
Other people? Just other?
Yes, Fletcher James, principal of Thurgood Marshall Middle School. I'm really appreciative of the academic instructional support that we receive from the turnaround office and also the continued encouragement and Dr. Ryans and Dr. Arbogast running, blocking for us and knocking down some of the roadblocks that we have as far as getting things done in the system. It's important with the high number of teacher turnovers that we have in these schools. And for instance, in my school, I probably have more than half my staff with less than 3 years of experience, that we continue to get the support from Turnaround Office, MSDE, as well as Research for Better Teaching and helping our teachers move forward and gaining experience and knowledge and skills in instruction.
Any other principals? Yeah.
Good evening.
Name?
I'm Michael Robinson, principal at Thomas Johnson Middle School.
Thank you.
I want to say that it has been a profound, pleasurable journey these 5 years that I've been in the state and in the county. I think this has been, last year and this year have been the most exciting and the most exuberant. And I think that's large in part because we had the opportunity to actually, it's a little different when you're actually able to really touch your supervisor and actually able to work side by side with him. And also in a large system such as this, if I were not a turnaround principal, I might not have as much access to Dr. Arbogast as we have had the opportunity to have during this tenure with Turnaround. And so that has been very, very beneficial to us because we have an opportunity to vent. I'm sure he needs Excedrin when he leaves our meetings, but we have an opportunity to vent and actually voice our opinions about things that we feel are important to us as principals, as turnaround principals, because the work is not easy. And when you're looking at a school that is a failing school, you know, it takes a lot to turn the school around. And the first thing that you're working with is culture and climate, but you're juggling all these other balls in the air at the same time. Staffing and parental engagement, trying to incentivize the students so that they are able to be productive in school. And so it's really important, and I think that for me, the most intricate thing in all of this has been working and learning from Dr. Arbogast and working and learning with Dr. Ryans and working so closely with them and working with our colleagues because it's an intimacy that we share that's none like any other opportunities that I've had in the past. And so this has really been meaningful. And just really trying to spread the word in terms of what turnaround, because it's not an ugly thing. It's very intricate work and very interesting work. But I think it's important that the board and everyone down understands what we're doing. And it's really important, I think, for people throughout the county to understand what it really means to be a turnaround school, because our needs are different. And I know that other schools share the same things that we do, but our needs are very, very different. Our schools are some of the toughest middle schools in the county, but I think that we've done a remarkable job collectively to really turn our schools around. Lots of work still to be done, but I think we've come a long ways in making our scholars, our parents, trying to make you proud, making our county proud and our citizens of our communities. Thank you.
One more, Madam Chair, I'd like the gentleman from MSDE who has joined in terms of any comments that would be helpful for the board.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Robert Glasscock. I'm the Executive Director of the Breakthrough Center at the Maryland State Department of Education. And my role at the State Department is to work across divisions so that we can partner with a phenomenal district like Prince George's County. I work at the national level a lot, and I always lifting up Prince George's County for the phenomenal dedication and work they're doing and the turnaround work. And this is coming from President Obama, Arnie Duncan, as his national initiative to turn around the 5,000 lowest achieving schools in this country. So I just want to thank you first as a board. I'd also want to provide a tremendous amount of acknowledgement for these phenomenal principals here. And just incredible work, I couldn't, with Dwayne Arbogast and Ed Ryans, two phenomenal leaders with this turnaround effort. One of the things that I think is most important to recognize and lift up from your district is that in 2008, Mass Insights, a nonprofit institution, did a study on turnaround, what the research was saying, what were the effective practice, what were the new emerging models. And one of the things they stated in their research, the most significant factor that influences sustainability of turnarounds is the responsiveness of the district to these schools. And I just want to acknowledge the board support, acknowledge the leadership support, and the principals, because you are demonstrating that this is not just a grant, that you are looking at policy, you're looking at staffing, you're looking at resource allocation, and you are responding to sustain this effort over time. And that's the answer. So I just wanted to let you know that you're on the right track. We're seeing good results in achievement growth, from a tremendous change in culture and climate from where these schools first started. You heard it from the community members, you've heard it from your principals. Just keep going the right way, and we are honored to partner with Prince George's County Schools. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What are you doing Saturday morning, sir?
What was the name of that conference room?
I know. I'm sure my colleagues will also say this. Our chair spoke about the hard work of being on the board. And, I had no idea when I took my oath of office how much time that I would dedicate to this work. And I don't regret 1 second of it, as much as, and it's so rewarding to see the hard, dedicated work of you all, principals in front of us, and the hard work of the administrators and the staff to make a difference in the life of the child, and to see those kids talk about, they care about us. They could do something else, but they're doing this. I know while we talk about some of our hours that we put in, it doesn't even compare to the dedication of each of you and all of your staff. So thank you very much for making such a difference in the life of our children.
Thank you. Actually, you could stay there because I'm not sure if I have people who buzz in and may have questions. Ms. Fellows?
Thank you. Congratulations on what you do, and we know the challenges that you face in your schools. Can you talk to us about some of the community involvement that you have specifically, and again, congratulations, Ms. Gardner. I look forward to coming over to your school next month for a town hall. And Dr. Dean, it's some wonderful events that you have with your children. Can you talk about the community engagement that you have and the wraparound services that you implement in your schools?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I thought that I had evaded that. Some of the partnerships that we have had the opportunity to engage in at Benjamin Stoddard over the past 3 years, a partnership with Community of Hope. They have been instrumental in our anti-bullying Way to Peace campaign.
Community of Hope AME Church?
Yes, Community of Hope AME Church. Very instrumental in a family reunion, family reunion event this summer in collaboration with our local TNI. Those partnerships have been really important because they have served twofold in terms of mentoring programs for our students that need it the most, working in collaboration with the students that have been targeted for suspension. They have come in to directly provide interventions after school for our school. In addition to that, working with parents through different health initiatives with the health department as well as TNI. So that's been very instrumental since we've been at Benjamin Stoddard in the first year of turnaround.
Thank you.
Ms. Epps?
Oh, I thought she wanted to hear from about Drew Freeman.
Or on any of the schools, of the community services that you have and the wraparound services
Actually,
that you have.
can I interrupt for just a second? We were all stunned by by the murders that we've seen, and right after that we had a meeting, and Hillary was talking about the mother of the victim had no place to go, and she went to Benjamin Stoddard the next morning. And I think that's a very important narrative for our community, that in such a tragedy, where the family goes is to these schools. I don't think there's a more incredible testament than that. And I just thought we would mention that. I'm sorry, Mark.
No, absolutely. I have the most fantastic community in the world, Suitland. When I came as the turnaround principal, some of the community members met me at the door and said, this is what you need to know about us, and we're also here to help. And in that regard, we have developed wonderful partnerships. The Steer Center actually changed their name, which was Suitland Family Life Development, and then they changed it to Suitland Technology Education Engagement Resource Center to support our school. We were able to develop a partnership with Boys and Girls Club. We have the first Boys and Girls Club of Greater Washington, which helps my students after school. We have Omega Go. We have so many people who come to the table and who sit with me. In fact, last summer I had a student pass of a severe asthma attack. I said, I don't want to experience that again. I talked to my community partners, and a week ago we had 16 doctors providing asthma screenings for all the students in the school. So those are the types of things that we do. We're always in touch with them. And tomorrow we have a conference for girls with community partners. Benjamin Stoddard and Drew Freeman. So without them, it's absolutely impossible, and they're vital. And then the last group of people I don't think we've acknowledged enough is especially those teachers who started with us that first year, who remained with us all 3 years. They have been through a lot, and they have stayed with us, and we are really appreciative of the hard work that they do every day.
At Oxon Hill Middle School, we have concerned black men who come into our school on a regular basis, Circle of Hope, who also mentor young men. We have 2 groups that mentor our young ladies. We have a partnership with the District Heights Youth and Family Center, where we have a therapist who comes in once a week to address some of those concerns that I spoke about earlier with the mental health issues of our students. We have a parent and family engagement specialist at our school who also works very closely with our community to bring in other partners. And I definitely would like to say that, although we stand here as the principals, we definitely represent dynamic staffs, and none of this work could be done without them. So I didn't say that at first, but I couldn't leave without saying that we have phenomenal groups of people at our school who are very dedicated, just as dedicated as we are, to make this work go through. But that's just some of the things that are happening at Oxon Hill Middle School.
Ms. Epps?
Thank you. Again, I have to echo all the congratulations. What I just saw was absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really, really excited about the, we're locking arms as a community right now, but to see us locking arms with, with the state as well is just absolutely awesome. And the reason why I feel so privileged to be a part of this system on behalf of our children. So as you were talking about the wonderful changes that were taking place, and as I looked at the children and was so, so inspired by how they're turning around, I couldn't help but think about my own district, and I guess my question is to you, Dr. Arbogast, about what are the next steps in terms of taking using these models and to take it to scale to other middle schools in the district.
It's interesting you said that. In our last executive council meeting with the turnaround schools, we were actually looking at the TNI initiative, and I asked the principals point blank, if we had the money, how would you spend it? And they, in about 10 minutes, we came up with a plan around wraparound services, social workers, dedicated PPWs around truancy, the relationship with the police officers, having off-site places where people could go for supports, but still using the school as a hub. So they had really clear ideas. So now what we have is we have a model that works, and we have proven proposals. Now when we cobble together the right money and the right districts, then I think we can put those in place. So I'm real optimistic that the lessons learned in these schools can be transferred to other schools.
Thank you.
To that point, though, I just want to add that recognizing that the Transforming Neighborhood Initiative communities usually obviously involves our students with the greatest needs. And so the board sent, when we sent our budget over to the county executive, included more than $6 million in that budget specifically for that. And so we're looking forward to the opportunity to make sure that the needs that you're talking about, that you actually get those things, and recognizing that, you know, student-based budgeting is designed to have the funds follow the children who have the greatest needs, and that was an opportunity for us to recognize those schools and add funding to that initiative. So I'm looking forward to seeing this actually grow.
We also had we didn't talk about this a lot, but the No Child Left Behind waiver allowed for changes around how we use Title I money. So the grant for 4 of our schools actually ends June 30th, unbelievably, and yet all of the work will continue because of how we were able to use Title I dollars, and we also set aside money in FY14 to continue the work. So, so we didn't want to allow this work to stop. So we've actually cobbled together the budget in FY14 to keep this work going.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows?
Dr. Arbogast, I first want to sincerely thank you for your leadership in this. I remember when this was first being implemented, and I was very, very hard on you and very skeptical, you know, and, you know, I still, I'm happy with the growth and improvement, and I'm terribly impressed with the work that you all have done. And I think you called him a blocker, and he did, because, he's been truly supportive of you all throughout this entire process. He's assured me time after time again that we were moving in the right direction, and we were. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for the risk that you took in becoming principals of turnaround schools. I know that could not have been an easy decision on your part. I attended Benjamin Starter Middle School, so I'm happy to see the work that's going on there. So my questions are, first, sort of what you ended with. Actually, before I say that, I just saw Mr. Coleman. Please have 24 copies of this tape made to send to the delegation. Send one to the county executive and to every council member.
You got that?
And our chief of communications is in the back, because this is the work. Oftentimes, we're so involved in the headlines and everything else that really does not involve the work. We're actively talking about how do you turn around a school, and you all are doing it. So I want to sincerely thank you for that. And some of the things that stuck out to me, first, you mentioned your staff having highly effective teachers. And so what I would like to hear from you all, well, I guess this is a larger conversation, is how do we recruit, retain, and how do you best support those highly effective teachers to stay? So that's one thing that I would like to hear. Second, your turnaround schools, you get additional dollars, but there are a lot, there are a lot of things that you do that don't exactly equate to money, but you still, there's still initiatives, things that you do to turn around the school that are not directly tied to a dollar. And I mention that to say, if you all had to talk to a room of non-turnaround principals, what would you tell them to do to shift their school cultures? What advice would you have for them based on what you've learned in this? Whether it's, how do you pull in community partners? How do you support your teachers? How do you build that team? How do you shift cultures? Because you're labeled as a turnaround school, but the issues that your students face are not just unique to turnaround schools. Students from all across the district you know, have needs that you're able to address in your school. So what would you tell to, you know, what best practices have you learned over your time as turnaround principals that you can share with other principals? So that's my second question. And then 3, Dr. Arbogast, what really stuck out to me, and this isn't just answer what you want to answer. We can talk offline about the rest. Dr. Arbogast, what really stuck out to me, and I know this even before this meeting, is, you know, when I talked to Mr. Coleman and I talked to the turnaround principals, they always mention the support they get from one another. And I think there's something very special and dynamic about that helps them in their work. And so I realize that this is a special model, a special program, but I feel like that intimacy with the administration, the intimacy with one another, really helps in their, I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong, you know, really helps in their ability to carry out the job, whether it's bouncing ideas off one another, or whatever the case may be. How do we create that sort of sense of community among school leaders and non-turnaround schools? And because not every, there are other like districts, like schools that are not, you know, labeled turnaround. So I want to figure out how to do that. But first, I'll yield the floor to.
So I'll address a few of your many questions.
Okay.
And so one of the things about turnaround schools being a little different, where every middle school has students with their issue, it's the volume of students that come in with a lot of baggage, which mostly adult baggage that has been put on them, but it's just incredible amount of issues that we have to help and work students through in order to get them educated. As far as staffing goes, again, just to be a middle school teacher, you have to be a very special person, but to be a middle school teacher in a turnaround school, you have to have a lot deeper bucket of empathy and understanding and willingness to build relationships with kids. And so when we go to interview, it's going to take us really sorting through the people in order to find the people that are right fit for our schools. And so if we can get priority staffing as far as kind of ahead of some of the other schools and being able to select people,
right,
to try to find the right people to fit the school with the greatest needs, we probably will be able to move the work along a lot faster, because it's a lot of relationship building with our students, and there's a lot of tough work that have to be done. We have to have people, the right people there. So again, too often I think that if we're put into this pot with all the other schools, there are a lot more attractive things physically and less issues at other schools that we have to face, that it's hard to compete to get those teachers if we don't get pushed ahead in priority in interviewing and selecting teachers.
Okay.
One of the things that we learned, we had pain points along the way in turnaround. And when we tell our story at this point in year 3, it sounds very different than it did in year 1, when all of us came in July and had to staff a building with 30 to 40, sometimes 50 employees. Right. We had to staff the school, from administrators to teachers to paraprofessional support staff. So turnaround work at this stage in year 3 sounds very different. But one of the pain points that we learned is that the cookie cutter approach, what may work in one community may not work in the other. We learned that firsthand. The issues that really plague our schools are issues, really are impactful for education for our students, are issues that are surrounding poverty. And sometimes that's difficult for us to talk about in the framework of education. But those are the things that our students are dealing with when they come in the door. And they're very significant. Through it all, we have, in all of the schools, there have been dramatic gains at every level. double-digit gains at every level in every school. And so that always is not summarized, because when we may look at the end of the year MSA data, for instance, but if you look at the work that we've been doing from year 1 to year 3, there have been double-digit gains. So some of the things that have made an impact have been the professional development and the supports that we provide for our teachers. Our teachers, we have teachers in alternative certification programs within our building, and although the turnover is high each year, I think in every building we experience a 50% turnover with teachers. We're constantly training a new batch of teachers every single year through alternative certification programs. But the professional development is really important. So to answer your question, what kind of information or advice we could give to other principals in terms of making those dramatic gains is really supporting the teachers. So the work that we do is centered around climate and culture. The work that we do is centered around poverty. But the most impactful thing that really helps our students is the direct work that we do in helping to build the capacity of our teachers through professional development.
To hear you speak is remarkable. To say we started off year 1, at the end of the year we're not where we want to be, but we've made double-digit gains since then. I just think that's so remarkable, and it's truly a testament to your ability to coach teachers, the dedication of your teachers, and also just, I mean, you mentioned poverty plays a huge role, and it does, and we have to talk about it as a reality. There's so many factors outside in the community that impact our schools, but rarely is that there ever a link. But thank you for your response.
Just real quick, one of the things that has really been important in our school is our culture and climate. And our school theme is positive energy activates constant elevation, or peace. And a lot of times the students don't know they're coming to a turnaround school. And so we do things at our school because it's the best practice for all students. So when we took every one of our students to visit a college on one day as our Oxon Hill Middle School College Takeover Day, we did it because it was great for students. And so I think that, we just have to keep that in mind and always believe in our students. We have to let them know that we love them, let them know that we believe in them, and let them know that we're going to do anything possible to help them succeed. One of the things that we did this year was start off the year with giving every student a binder with dividers, with pencils and pens, just to start off the school year. And we've kept that practice up. So instead of fussing because they didn't have something because their parents didn't get it, I'd rather give it to them, put them back in class, so that we continue focusing on instruction. So I think just the love of the work is important. And if I would give advice to any other principals, I would just say to continue to believe in your students and give them the best opportunities possible. That is always important, because once they know that you believe in them, they will then start to believe in themselves and give you more.
I just want to say, whatever we can do policy-wise, budgetary-wise, we want to support you, and we're serious about it.
I think the advice that I would give to an incoming principal is that self-efficacy is really important, and being a self-reflector is really important. I always tell my teachers that I'm a teacher first before I'm a principal. And so when I make decisions for teachers, I make decisions that I as a teacher would be able to abide by and follow through with. And I had a unique situation this year because Oxon Hill and Thomas Johnson are not in the same grant, under the same grant as the other 4 turnaround schools. Our grant, we have an additional year on our grant. So this year was very unique because I had 20 plus, and I'll just stop there, teachers that I had to hire and employees within my building this year. That was very different for me. I've been in education now about 17 years. This has been the most difficult year because I've had to train brand new teachers because they have never taught in a school before. They're not educators. They came from different other backgrounds. And so it's been a very interesting year. And so you have to have a profound fortitude to be able to persevere through the waters that constantly sometimes overtake you as a principal and especially as a turnaround principal. And it's really important that you have a strong constituted faith to get through the difficult times, because there are going to be plenty of them. And so as principals, a lot of times in our exec meetings, we've talked about policy. Why doesn't the board do this, or why can't we do that? And because certain policies are not necessarily written to govern what we're doing as turnaround. And so one of the things that I would really ask is that we look at our policies and that would impact the work and turnaround. That's going to be really important. And I know that there are so many logistical things that go with that in terms of bargaining units and in terms of contracts and all those types of things. But when it comes to staffing, it's really crucial. And if I just ask, if you remember nothing else tonight, please take the fact that staffing is so crucial, because in a turnaround school, I have 20+ brand new teachers. If I had never taught school before, I would be in bad shape, because I've had to do a lot of the professional development for the teachers, writing it, training them on it, and implementing it. And so it's been difficult, but I'm starting to see the light bulbs go off for a lot of my brand new teachers, and they're starting to shine, but it's taken this long. And so the support of the board, we really appreciate that, because it's good to know that we have people above us who are watching over us and protecting us, but the policies that govern what we do is something that we really need to visit.
And please email me the policy suggestions that you have, because my chair has already told me my time is up, so please email me. And then also I just wanted to know really quickly, what happens when the grant runs out?
The grant did run out. It runs out on June 30th for the first 4 schools, but we're picking it up through a combination of Title I and operating budget.
Good evening. My name is Tori Walker, and I am the resident principal at Benjamin Stoddard School. And so asking the question about new principals and what advice would they give, I just wanted to say that I have had an excellent mentoring experience at Benjamin Stoddard School. I have experienced a lot this year. I have learned from these principals from attending our executive council meetings, and just having the support. So it's not like I have one mentor, but I have these mentors because they have opened their doors, they have offered assistance to me. So becoming a new principal, it has been an awesome experience to be in a turnaround school, because I think that I have experienced just about every situation that can be experienced as a principal. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, Dr. Arbogast, no, this is not a question. Dr. Arbogast and the superintendent, you guys do an amazing job at working hard for your staff and blocking for your staff. And I see what we're doing as a board in these times. Now it's us. We want you guys to do the work, and we want you to have the free reign, so we're blocking for you guys. And so I just wanted to mention that. And that's how I view it, because you guys are doing the work. You guys are doing the work, and it's important that we stand up for you all so that you can stand up for them.
I was wondering if I could jump in for a second, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
First of all, hello all. Good to see you all. And so there's been a lot of commentary about staffing, and I think my colleagues here have done a great job at articulating some of the frustration. But one, I wanted to assure you that we are in HR looking at these issues. We have conversations, have been into the schools to talk about the challenges that they face. And one of the things is important is that we continue to work with our labor partners around some of the tension around policy, if you will. So we continue to have those conversations, and we've made some different types of arrangements of support to give them the autonomy to really be selective in some instances of their staffing, which we didn't have the first time when turnaround schools were implemented. And so I wanted to acknowledge them, and particularly Dr. Dean. She's been really helpful to me in getting me to think differently and figuring out how to have the right conversations with our labor partners and with others for that matter. And in doing so, what you should know is that we send them people, and as Fletcher has eloquently stated, they filter them very carefully, because it takes a special person to be, one, a middle school teacher, which I am formerly a middle school teacher, two, to be a principal, and I am formerly a principal. So I really understand the seat that they sit in, and I take personal responsibility for really trying to support your efforts, and I want to be on record as stating such, and hopefully they could agree in those instances. The second thing, I think, Mr. Burrows, is that you raised a question around what type of other supports for principals do we put in place. And one of the things that my office is also responsible for is the School Leaders Network, where we put principals who focus on problems of practice that are issues and concerns for them, where they meet once a month. They have dinner and they kind of talk through some of the issues and challenges. They commiserate, but they also think and go through an inquiry model where they actually problem solve some of the issues that are relative to their work. And so we've had different groups. I had a group actually of elementary school special education principals email me today and say, we really appreciate this, keep putting this in place. So there are opportunities that we try to put them together. And then I don't know if I mentioned this, but we are working with Dr. Rhines to have a turnaround fair on May 11th. That's the date that's tentatively we're waiting for approval on them, so I wanted to let you guys know that as well. So I just wanted to let you know, one, I wanted to acknowledge you all because I do appreciate how hard you work, how patient you are, and want you to understand that we are working to support you, and so I wanted to be on record as stating such. So thanks for your hard work, team.
One other piece of advice I would want to give the other principals that have to do this type of work is you have to develop teacher leaders within your school. There's so much work to be done. If one principal thinks that he's going to do it all by himself, it's not going to happen. And so continue to develop the teacher leaders in your school, which probably all of us are going to be victim to them becoming administrators and leaving our school, because we have some great people that have assisted us in this work, and we definitely not able to take all the credit, but we're going to have huge gaps. And but that's a good thing for the system, but we have to continue to develop our teacher leaders.
Ms. Epps?
Thank you. I know we're running kind of late, and I want to keep this brief. But one of the things that popped into my head is, I work in higher education, and so the thought did cross my mind of how we pay this forward and have the conversation, because we have all these urban education programs that really aren't teaching teachers how to be teachers in urban education, and so here we have it. And so I just wanted to get the conversation started and put it out there. Plant some seeds to the extent that they may or may not have already been planted, but to the extent that you all can take this thing on the road and change the world and the whole 9 yards, so that we can, because it starts with you, but then this is it. This is the crux of the work. We get this right, and that's where the real change starts to happen, because children who never had a shot get a shot, and they get a shot because of what you do. So as 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-olds decide that they want to become a teacher, then they need to learn how to do it right. And so to the extent that we can connect these prime teachers and educators to those who are learning how to do it and doing it right, I'm excited about that, and I hope that we have a plan in place to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, but we have a university convening twice a year, and we'll make sure that this is a continued part of the process. What we're trying to do is evaluate how universities and who universities send to us so that they're prepared. So we're having conversations with over 50 of our closest range university partners. And so I'll be sure to make sure to extend the next invitation to you all as the board, so you can also come out and hear some of those conversations.
Thank you.
And the other thing is, in the earlier commentary, we talked about how Prince George's County is very much a leader around our teacher evaluation work, principal evaluation work, how we've structured to support principals, student-based budgeting, but we've also become a leader nationally in the turnaround movement. So all of these young folks that you see in front of you are now nationally renowned, and all of the issues that you address, Ms. Epps, actually, we've actually been able to put policy decisions forward, had conversations with USDE. So you are actually looking at the team of national experts.
Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to weigh in, but I also want to really quickly mention a couple of quick things before our colleagues leave. I know that they have school tomorrow, and I'm sorry that Dr. Ryan could not be with us. He was probably one of the first administrators that I met with when I came to Prince George's County and talked about the work that's taking place in our turnaround schools. And I think tonight you have a fine example of that work. So I did want to take this opportunity to extend my congratulations to the work that's being done in our schools under your capable leadership and the hard work of the teaching staff and the other support staff in the building who make it happen every day. One of the things that we didn't mention during our comments in terms of sharing updates was today there was a community tour that was organized by Dr. Arbogast and his team along with our partners at the Community Foundation. And we had a group of about 35 to 40 nonprofit organizations who jumped on a bus and visited a number of our schools. And I know that one of the schools that they visited was Drew Freeman. And Dr. Dean joined us later on, where we had what I thought was a really great discussion on dropout and ways that we can work together as a community to decrease our dropout rate. And so all of the things that you are hearing tonight are things that contribute to that work. It's where we're going as a system in terms of making a difference. And a lot of times when you think about turnaround schools, you think about test scores. But this is not about test scores. And you hear the principals talk about changing climate and culture, our expectations that we have for our young people, and then making sure that they're supported and successful. So you're going to make a difference. What you're doing now is making a difference, and we're going to see the results of your work later on when those students walk across the stage and they go and move forward with fulfilling our vision of being able to make choices about their lives, good choices. So thank you so much.
Okay. That was a good presentation. We should have all of our presentations.
It was better than the next presentation.
You mean there's another one? I think we've heard it all.
So, do you want to?
So why don't we just move forward?
So we have the FAST data, but it occurred to me that this next presentation is completely inadequate in terms of what we just heard. And you know I love data, and I'm going to share some data with you, but it doesn't even come close to the heart of the matter. And I think we just spent an hour talking about the core work and how complex the core work is. And we tend to measure ourselves against metrics that are just really inadequate to capture what you just heard, right? So we try to find proxies. You know, Fletcher's suspension rate has dropped like 20-fold. It's amazing. It was like 180, and he dropped it down to like 20. So, you know, we look for these data pieces, but it doesn't really tell you the story. So I'm going to actually move through this presentation very quickly. It's late. And so, as soon as it comes up. Doing something wrong? Great. I don't really have to go through this data. We've done this before, but this slide is really very important. And first thing I want to tell you is the data that we're presenting tonight is based on the formative assessment test that we give quarterly. And formative assessment tests are based on assessment limits, which means that they're based on the proficiency level of MSA, not necessarily the advanced level. So on an MSA test, you have easy questions, moderately difficult questions and really hard questions. What you don't see on the FAST test are the really hard questions. So when we talk about advanced on FAST, it's not a true advanced score. It's really more a measure of precision. It's how many you get right. It doesn't necessarily assess how many really hard questions you got correct. So I think that that's important to know. What do we know about FAST tests? We know FAST tests are correlated to MSA, and we also know that FAST 2 is more correlated than FAST 1. So it's a better predictor than FAST 1. Our expectation is that scores will actually improve from FAST 1 to FAST 2, and they generally do. 8th grade math scores were horrendous this year, and they, as a matter of fact, we did the 8th grade scores, and I just met with the turnaround principals, and they were literally screaming about how low the scores were. We were like, what's different, what's different? Well, we recalibrated the 8th grade test. So we pushed, so rather than looking at raw score, we actually changed the cut scores to make it, it was actually a more difficult test. So the performance didn't significantly change on the 8th grade FAST test, but our cut score did. And the principals breathed a little bit sigh of relief when they saw that. This is another important piece. In MSA and HSA, there is a MOD test. The MOD test is a different version specifically for special education students. It has less detractors, less demand in the questions. The state did away with the MOD test this year, and so did we. So when you look at the data, you're going to see the special ed scores drop significantly. We really attribute that to the removal of the MOD test. But we also know that that's more predictive of MSA. How do we use formative assessments? They're used to guide instruction. We look at each item. We look at the standards the kids did poorly on, and then we do a lot of reteaching and rehearsal of those so that the kids are better prepared for the test. The FAST tests are not the unit test. FAST tests are randomly selected items. Unit tests are matched more closely to what the kids actually learned. We do not require unit tests. They're optional. However, next year is where we're embedding the PARC assessments. So the unit tests are actually going to be a more important metric for us. I'm going to tell you this is probably the last year we'll give the FAST test because the FAST tests are not taking us to where we need to be in the Common Core, and we have to make that transition. So I just wanted to kind of give that context. So this is the mathematics scores. What we've done is we've given you FAST 1 to FAST 2. And for the most part, the scores went up, but you would expect that. And we also broke them out by proficient and advanced. And what you'll notice is that the advanced scores actually took a jump up, so kids got more correct. And if you don't mind, I think I'll blow through these slides pretty quickly since it's late in the evening. What this slide shows is, so we said, oh yeah, so FAST 1 to FAST 2, we want to see, you know, that we expect that. How do we do compared to FAST 2 last year? And then you can see the growth. And what I did was I color-coded in green the increases and color-coded in red the decreases. But if you look real closely at the numbers, there's not a whole lot of change in there. The ones that went up were pretty close, and the ones that went down were pretty close. Here's our special ed and the LEP, limited English proficiency. As we predicted, the special ed scores did drop because we removed the MOD test. And actually, had we not given the MOD test, I would have expected the special ed scores to look a little bit more like the LEP scores. But that MOD test the removal of the MOD test had a pretty significant impact. Here are reading scores, FAST 1 to FAST 2. And here is FAST 2 to FAST 2. FAST 2 last year to FAST 2 this year. So in some cases, the change was less than a point. What we did was we have 3 different FAST tests in elementary school in reading, depending on the reading program you're using, America's Choice, the Comprehensive, and the Toolkit. So we actually broke out the scores for you. I've really tried to pay attention to this to see if I could draw conclusions. Is Toolkit working better than America's Choice? And unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that. I haven't been able to find the right cohort to compare one group to another. So I'm having a difficult time saying, oh yeah, we're getting more success out of Toolkit than we are America's Choice. Here are 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading, LEP, and special ed. FAST 2 to FAST 2. Here are the SRI scores, the Scholastic Reading Inventory. This is more of a holistic reading competency test, and as you can see, the numbers still hover around 60%. For the 3 years that I've been presenting to you, those numbers have stayed pretty much around the 60%. Very little variability from one year to the next, which concerns me. Now remember, the SRI is pure reading proficiency and not necessarily related to the MSA standards, and so this test actually looks very different than the FAST test. Here are the BCR scores. A 0 is a bad score, a 3 is a really great score. On MSA, a 2 or a 3 is considered sufficient. FAST 2, last year to this year. Here's LEP for grades 6, 7, and 8 in reading and language arts. And here are the brief constructive response for 6th and 7th and 8th grades. Here's HSA English 2, last year to this year. We had a pretty dramatic increase in English about 2 years ago. Once the IFL disciplinary literacy units kicked in, we've been able to maintain that bump that we got a couple years ago. Here's HSA biology. Now last year, the biology was our big bump. It was actually our largest increase. Here is science, FAST 2, grades 5 and 8. We were pretty pleased with when we got the SPI scores. Science was one of our best increases in SPI. HSA algebra, last year to this year. So, what are we doing? So again, back at the ranch, and you heard it with the turnaround principles. It's all about continued professional development, and you know we haven't had a lot of money or time, and right now time is the resource that we're struggling with most, when to find time to meet with educators. Race to the Top has certainly helped with that, Race to the Top funding, but professional development for both administrators and teachers is absolutely essential. Collaborative planning continues to be refined, and we're seeing good outcomes from there. Data walls are a way to track students. Obviously, we're transitioning to the Common Core. There's a lot of anxiety around this one, a lot of anxiety. The principals are worried, we're worried. This is a big shift in instruction. Our teachers know it's coming. They're trying to get ready for it, but the shift is pretty significant. And then on top of that, we put student learning objectives because the state wants us to move to the new teacher evaluation next year and hold everyone accountable. So one of the big pieces of this teacher evaluation next year is going to be around student learning objectives. And these are opportunities for teachers to have conversations with their principals, looking at the kids they have in their class, and set reasonable and attainable outcomes for the kids that they work with every day. So that's really our focus. Hopefully each year this slide gets smaller and smaller as we continue to focus on what the core issues are. And I'm just going to close with how I opened. Data's fun and it's interesting, but it doesn't come close to this narrative you heard the previous hour.
Absolutely. Ms. Boston.
Thank you, Dr. Arbogast, for that presentation and for making it brief.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that. And I know data is your thing. So, one of the things that I noticed that our fourth graders seem to be doing. We've got our fourth grade students that are doing pretty good. The scores look pretty good, and then when they get into fifth grade, that's a decline. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, well, the fourth graders across the state look really good. So if I look at proficiency rates, it doesn't matter what district, fourth grade is always the highest. So which tells me, so my conclusion is, because it's consistent year after year, that the fourth grade assessment is actually the easiest of all the assessments.
and the most difficult of all the assessments is 8th grade math. Now, in elementary school, the most difficult assessment is actually reading in 3rd grade. So when kids go from reading in 3rd grade to 4th grade, it makes it look like 4th grade, we're doing an awesome job. And I think that's actually the wrong conclusion. I think the standard is simply not high enough in 4th grade at the assessment level. And I also think that's true in the transition from elementary to middle. You know, everybody talks about the big dip in middle school, right? But Prince George's County is not the only district having a big dip in middle school, and we're not the only county where 8th grade scores have really struggled. Remember, virtually every middle school in the state didn't make AYP the year before. So it's that level of difficulty, and I'm going to argue that the rigor of the middle school test is a significant increase over the rigor of the elementary test. 4th grade just happens to be the easiest.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Higgins.
Thank you very much. Dr. Harbogast, I appreciate your energy around looking at the data and analyzing it so that we can continue to improve and work in behalf, and thank Dr. Crowley as well. I want to talk, and you mentioned it a little bit, but you could kind of unpack it a little bit about the special ed questions, or the test results on the special ed. If I could, because, I mean, I heard you say that, you know, it's changed and we dropped the mod, so I'd like you to talk about that, but I'd also like to have some conversation about if I'm seeing 12.2% or 13%, what am I supposed to think about the ability of the students in that category to understand the rigor of the education?
So that's really a good point. It's important to note that to be in special ed, you have to qualify to be in special ed, which means that there's a documented disability that interferes with learning. You cannot be in special ed unless we document that there's a problem with learning. And what's interesting is, as soon as that's remediated, we take you out of special ed. So there's no one in special ed that doesn't have an obstacle to their learning. The trick is to figure that out. And I had an epiphany. It began several years ago, but it really, honestly, this weekend, I had this epiphany, and I had this, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you a story. I had these two twins who were born premature in my school, and they had delayed intellectual ability. And we put so many services around these two young men, and the mom never gave up, right? She pushed us really hard, and we worked really hard with these kids. And Ms. Higgins, I just didn't know what was going to happen to them. I mean, we just put so many supports around them. So this was years ago, and I saw the mom on Sunday morning. I said, "How are the boys doing?" And she said, "They're doing really well. They both have jobs. They're both taking classes at the community college." So the lesson was the kids that I worried about so much and I put so much academic support around and wasn't seeing the results in grades 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. You do see the results. You just can't give up. And this mom never gave up on these kids, right? So you keep working it and you're working it and working it, and these kids do become successful and they do find jobs and they do go to college. And what I'm asking the board, and when I ask those who look at our special ed data, is to give us the time to beat the obstacle that's keeping them from learning at a regular rate. Does that make sense?
It still obviously is a very low number. So, and I'm just I'm trying to, I hear you loud and clear that as long as we maintain the energy and the commitment to our children, we're going to achieve phenomenal things, as evidenced by the earlier presentation. And I certainly believe that as well. I guess in regards to specifically, if we have such, 13% or those small numbers, what is that number saying? Does that number say that, what is that, 87? The 87% of the children do not know math, do not know reading? I don't know how to interpret that number.
Yes, so remember, a FAST test is very limited to the assessment limit and to the standard. For many kids, they can't access the standard because there are foundational delays. So what you'll find is you'll find kids who have really weak fluency or their ability to decode is really delayed. It doesn't necessarily mean they can't figure out what the theme of a story is. It just means that their foundational skills are really weak. Same with mathematics. Weak number sense, weak in patterning, weak in understanding how numbers work, not understanding place values, so they can't access at the standard level. So what we have to do in those cases, as we work with special education students, but really all students who are struggling, is we have to teach them not only at the standard level, but we have to find time to address those foundational skills. And you've heard me talk about response to intervention and research-based intervention. So what we're trying to do is create space so that kids can have instruction at the standard level. You know, so if you're in 7th grade, you're still getting 7th grade material and learning 7th grade standards. But sometime during the day, you're still being remediated because you're only reading in the 3rd or 4th grade level. Mm-hmm. And that's really the challenge. And my lesson that I learned, and I'm not sure I conveyed this enough in the story, is that given time, we actually beat those foundational skills. Kids do learn to read, but it takes a lot of time. And the other thing that really concerns me is, why do we expect kids with documented disabilities to learn in 180 days, 6.5 hours a day, same as everyone else? Who came up with that ratio, right? So if you have a documented disability, why are you held to the same number of minutes that a kid who doesn't have a documented disability has? So remember they talked about policy? That's actually one of the policies that we have to think about, is how we use our school day, how we use our time, and how we work with kids over time.
Okay, so, one last question. How many students do we have in special ed program?
Roughly about 14,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, I think that concludes. Ms. Epps, did you buzz in again? Okay, that concludes questions from the board on that issue. Dr. Crowley?
Yeah, Board Chair, I'd just like to make just one comment in reference to the presentation, and just want us to keep in mind that we're talking about formative assessment versus summative assessment, and the whole idea here is to look at where our students are at a period of time and make adjustments in our instructional practice and deliver instruction that targets the specific concerns that we're seeing. And that's, to me, that's the heart of formative assessment versus reacting at the end to summative data, which is what the MSA does. So Ms. Higgins talked about what it is that we need to do and how should we look at these data. And I think that one of the things that we do is we look at how students are performing and where we're seeing difficulties, and then we adjust our instructional practice to make sure that we're meeting the needs of students. And as we look at students with disabilities, to make sure that that is reflected in how we write IEP goals, how we deliver instruction, how we make accommodations so that students are moving forward and making progress. And this is the expectation that we would have for all of our students. But I just wanted to say that this is formative assessment data. And it's data that we need to continue to look at and make choices and make decisions that drive instructional practice.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our next item.
Okay, we have consent agenda items. The first item is item 8.1, is before the board for approval of a proclamation commemorating Earth Day 2013 in the Prince George's County Public School System.
Thank you, Dr. Crowley. Colleagues, is there a motion? 8.1. Thank you, Ms. Boston. Thank you, Ms. Waller. The motion is to approve 8.1, which is proclamation for Earth Day 2013. Any discussion? Call the roll, Ms. Jackson.
On the motion, Ms. Beck. Mr. Burrows.
Aye.
Ms. Epps.
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks.
Aye.
Ms. Fellows.
Aye.
Ms. Higgins.
Aye.
Ms. Waller. Ms. Boston.
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item, we have 3 budget consent agenda items, and I'm going to read through them and then ask staff to provide a brief description of each item. Items 9.1 to 9.3 are before the board for approval of the FY 2013 appropriation reassignments April 2013 expenditure requirements and an award of a construction contract for the administrative office and vestibule at Central High School. And so let's take the first item, the appropriation reassignment over $100,000. Mr. Sheeran.
Thank you, Dr. Crawley, Board Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. This is a item consistent with Board Policy 3130, dealing with fiscal responsibility and control. There are two items for consideration. The first one is the realignment of the funds to support charter schools. This is an allocation that basically provides them with discretionary resources, and it's brought forward for your consideration. And then secondly, another item related to funding for substitutes. There was an initial transaction that was about $170,000. That was actually needed to be corrected because it had to be fine-tuned so that it matched up with the FTE count at the schools that were affected. So the first transaction was canceled out by the second one, and then we made the actual transaction, which was actually under the $100,000. Those two items are for board approval, consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fellows?
Just a note that I had requested some of these documents prior to in a March 13th email. I know you talked about the $170,000. What is the $498,000 for that is being redirected for this academy, because it says it's for discretionary, not full-time employees?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's when the school system gives the resources to charter schools, it's actually a process where when the board appropriates this funding, we actually cut a check that goes to the schools, and it's for their discretionary purposes. Discretionary meaning it's not to cover salaries, it's not to cover benefits, it's for all the non-salary, non-benefit items that charter school is going to use.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by the other items besides those? Like, what do you mean by other discretionary? When you say not full-time, what other?
Discretionary by definition means it's not a salary amount. Discretionary by definition means it's not for any kind of an employee benefit like health insurance or any kind of other compensation related allocation. It's for all non-personnel, non-benefit related expenditure. Copier charges would be a classic example. If the charter school is going to rent a copier, they're going to have to lease it from some company, and then they would need some money to pay the lease.
Okay. Will it be spent by that June 30th deadline, you think?
Well, they get multiple allocations during the year. We do that for internal control purposes. Each charter school goes through by state regulation as an annual external audit. So whatever the outcome of their spending is at the end of the fiscal year would be determined through that audit.
Okay, and lastly, is there a scope of service for this one here? I know you said you talked about discretionary, but is there a scope of service for the expenditure? Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
The next item is
the board needs to make a motion.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Been properly moved and second that the board approves first item 9.1. Call the roll.
On the motion, Ms. Beck? Mr. Burrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps? Aye. Ms. Eubanks? Aye. Ms. Fellows?
Abstain until I get the scope of service. Thank you. Abstain.
Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Ms. Waller? Aye. Ms. Boston? Aye. Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharon.
Okay, we'll move forward with 9.2. Mr. Sheeran.
Board members, this is an item that comes to the board routinely. We have a request for outlining the expenditure requirements for the district. In those instances, when the school system does not have, in a projected sense, enough resources, we put this forward to request the county for a transfer of funds. And in this case, the treasurer works every month hand in glove with the finance officials over at the county. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we give the county an actual projected schedule of what the drawdown requirements are going to be. And so that communication works out real well. In this particular month, the schedule predicted that we'd need to go to the county to ask for these additional $7 million worth of funds. The plan is to projected, looking at what we're going to need for our vendor payments, which is the accounts payable line, $68 million. For payroll purposes, there's an estimate of $54.5 million. And then for other deductions and employee liabilities such as taxes and insurance, there's an estimate of $26.5 for the 149.9. So this is a routine item brought to the board for their consideration and approval.
So this is essentially paying our bills.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion, colleagues?
I make a motion that we accept 9.2 expenditure requirements for 2013.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pearls. Ms. Fellows?
Just one question. Why does the board summary reflect the expenditure level of $149 million, as you see here, for the month of April, but only $14 million as cash disbursement for the office of the county executive, from the office of the county executive? Why only $14 million?
Because we have the rest of the resources in hand. The school system and the county government work hand in glove to make sure that cash flow balances and requirements work together.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
On the motion, Mr. Burrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps?
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks?
Aye.
Ms. Fellows?
Abstain.
Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Ms. Boston?
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
And our final item is item 9.3, and I'm going to ask Ms. Golson to provide a brief description.
Yes, we're asking that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to take the second lowest responsive bidder for the Administration Office renovation and vestibule addition at Central High School in the amount of $937,000. We're asking that the second lowest bidder be selected because the lowest bidder, we had problems with that contractor for a previous school and did not want to use that contractor. We have provided supporting documentation for that in this packet to you.
Thank you. Colleagues, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boston. Thank you, Ms. Waller. Ms. Fellows?
Yes, I had asked if you said the hard copy of the contract is not here. Is there any reason why the hard copy of the contract is not here, as well as the purchase requisition? Is that available for the $937,000, as well as the bid process document? Again, I did request these items beforehand. I'm sorry, I did request them through the superintendent as well as the chair. So I wanted to know if those documents are available for review.
The contract will become available once the board approves tonight, and then we will have it signed and can provide it after board vote this evening.
Okay, thank you.
That means there's no contract yet, right? Because you need the approval to move forward. I just want to be clear. Thank you. Call the roll, Ms. Jackson.
On the motion, Mr. Burrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps? Aye. Ms. Eubanks?
Aye.
Ms. Fellows?
No.
Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Ms. Waller? Aye. Ms. Boston? Aye. Ms. Jacobs? Motion passed.
Okay, colleagues, that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. We do have two registered speakers who have signed up to speak, and our first is Mr. Paul Shackelford, founder and executive director, Turning Point Academy.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, board members, Dr. Crawley. Okay. I'm Paul Shackelford, one of the founders and executive director of Turning Point Academy. Turning Point Academy is the very first public charter school to open in Prince George's County. We opened in 2006. We now have approximately 550 students in our program, and we're located at 7800 Good Luck Road in Atlanta, Maryland. Turning Point Academy is a well-managed school. We're fiscally responsible. We have an excellent principal in Ms. Clomax. Our teachers are outstanding. They work very hard. We currently have a waiting list from the lottery of about 375 students. We could accommodate them if we had a bigger building. Probably wonder why that matters. We have a slot available every year of about 120 seats. Of that 120 seats, almost half come from private schools. That is a good stat to know because we're attracting students back to the county. That's big. Okay, so the last 8 years I've looked at over 45 properties, including some of the schools that were repurposed back in 2009, and we were asked to select from those repurposed schools: Berkshire Elementary, Shugart, John Carroll, John Howard, Matthew Henson, Middleton Valley, Morningside, Owens Road. We selected Shugart as number 1. We selected John Carroll as number 2, Matthew Henson as number 3. And all three of those schools were actually taken off the list for us. And so recently I met with the current superintendent, interim superintendent, and we took a look at John Carroll again and Green Valley Elementary Schools. After the walkthrough, I sent the superintendent information that we are interested in only John Carroll. All right. So I understand that there's ARRA money that's been spent at the school and what have you, and I know that's not easy to resolve. So I reached out to one of the board members, and she mentioned, because I asked, why was this taken off of the agenda at the end of 2012 for Turning Point Academy to move into John Carroll? The board member mentioned that there have been concerns raised by board members about moving school staff from John Carroll. Okay, so I guess I don't have any more time. Bottom line is, I would love to speak with all of you just to let you know about our school and our needs. We have 550 kids at our school, and there's only 20 staff members over at John Carroll. I just think that the students should come first.
Mr. Shackelford, if you would leave your comments for us.
Sure will. There's so much more. There you go.
And Dr. Crawley, you may have an update on the process by which the district has sought to accommodate availability for Turning Point.
Do you want me to talk now? Certainly, as Mr. Shackelford mentioned, he and I had a discussion, and we talked about John Carroll, and also at that time I presented another option, Green Valley, and one day we went out and visited both sites, and currently, as you know, John Carroll houses a number of our programs, such as special education and Title I, and there are a number of partnerships, such as the autism program that is there as well. And then we went to Green Valley as well, which is currently an empty building with some additional space in relocatables that somehow the state left us as a gift. And so that property was also discussed with Mr. Shackelford, and as a follow-up, I did send him an email indicating that we would be willing to work with him on the Green Valley location.
Thank you. Next registered speaker. Sorry, Ms. Boston. Tiffany Hare is there.
Good evening, everyone. I actually registered at 4:15, and this is my first time, but what brings me here tonight is a broken heart. I have a short story. I have a 7th grader that attends Thurgood Marshall Middle School. And just wanted to give a brief story. Hopefully the timer doesn't time me out. But I wake her up 5 o'clock in the morning every day to catch her bus at 6:20 in the morning. The sun hasn't risen yet. My first concern is transportation. So she goes outside of the community, which is Applegate community, to catch her bus. In previous years, there were 2 stops. Now there's only 1, which, like I said, takes those kids, those students, outside of the community. I've been doing emails back and forth for probably almost 2 months now with no results. So 5 o'clock, she gets on the bus. She gets to Thurgood Marshall. When she gets to Thurgood Marshall, I believe she's transported into a different world. I have shadowed her on several occasions. The first time I've ever shadowed her, her first class was in total chaos. Not only did a couple of people call me while I was in the classroom, and they could not believe that I was sitting in my child's classroom at Thurgood Marshall. Seconds after sitting in there and witnessing this, I left. I went and got the administrator, who then sent someone to try to calm the kids. That particular day, there was a substitute there. That person was blatantly disrespected. The fact that I was a parent in the classroom did not matter. Those same kids were transferred into a second class, second mod, in which a disabled teacher was blatantly disrespected, threatened, and intimidated. And this was maybe a few months ago. I did address this with the principal as well as the administrator, and I did tell them at that particular time, if I was financially capable, I would have pulled my child out of that school that very day. They did say that they understood and that they will address the situation. So I got a phone call today. Same teacher, disabled teacher, had books thrown at her. The entire class is possibly up for suspension if myself, as well as the rest of the parents, do not come and I guess kind of get the kids back in school tomorrow. And so I do have a few solutions. I mean, I've already told you the problems. So the few solutions that I've always thought about is maybe a monitoring system. I'm not sure if public schools are allowed to have things like that, but I do know that they are at private schools. I will even go in my own back pocket to supply the laptop to hopefully Skype into the classroom, because I do know, just like myself, that there are probably other single moms or single dads or even couples that cannot make the time out because they work 9 to 5 jobs. That's my text.
Thank you, Ms. Hare. Dr. Crawley, and, well, let me just say, we need to have you obviously follow up and
Absolutely.
report back to the board, not for the next board meeting follow-ups, but by your Friday packet as
Absolutely.
much as possible. What's
We will
going on.
follow up.
And then if you would also direct.
If she could stay back for a few minutes, I'd like to have one of the staff talk with her and get some additional information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, that concludes our public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any questions with regard to follow-up items from our last board meeting?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Burrows?
Yes. Dr. Crawley, at our last meeting, I think it's important that we are transparent and open about our issues. And if there's an issue when it comes to finance, where it comes to shifting categories, and we have individuals at different levels of government with concerns, we need to be responsive to that. And at our last meeting, I heard several concerns that I just wanted to address to see if you were able to get some sort of follow-up in that regard.
Mr. Barrows, I believe you're talking about the concern regarding conversations with the county auditor regarding the finances of the school system?
I am.
Okay. staff followed up with David Van Dyke, which is the person that I believe that was referenced during the discussion. And I'm going to turn to Mr. Sheeran and ask him to respond. I know we received a written response back as a result of the concern. So I'm going to ask him to provide us with a follow-up.
Thank you, Dr. Crawley. Board Chair, Vice Chair, board members. I met with County Auditor David Van Dyke and subsequently received a letter dated March 8th, 2013 from David Van Dyke, County Auditor of the Office of Audits and Investigations. The subject of the memo is meeting with Carletta Fellows, and I'll read this text. Pursuant to your request, the purpose of this memorandum is to clarify the nature of my meeting with Prince George's County Board of Education member Carletta Fellows on February 6, 2013. On January 29th, 2013, and again on February 4th, 2013, Ms. Fellows telephoned my office and asked if she could meet with me. I inquired the reasons for her desire to meet, and she replied that she would prefer to meet in person to discuss her concerns. On the morning of February 6, 2013, Ms. Fellows arrived at my office, and we met for approximately 1 hour. Ms. Fellows initially read a prepared statement to me alleging, quote, unintentional fraud, waste, and abuse, end quote, by the school system and senior administrative employees. She requested my office to begin an investigation into this matter and had a number of questions related to the school system's financial condition and financial activities, especially with respect to county council approval. I informed Ms. Fellows that we could not initiate an investigation or audit without authorization from county council. I also asked her to explain some of the issues that led her to believe that an investigation was warranted. After listening to Mrs. Fellows' questions and perceptions regarding how financial activities were initiated, approved, and executed, it became apparent to me that she did not have a complete understanding of the budgeting and accounting process for the school system and the relationship with the county government. I explained in basic terms how the process works and the state law and approval processes that are required. I also stated more than once that, in my professional opinion, the issues she was concerned about were nothing more than a lack of communication or a lack of understanding. Ms. Fellows discussed a number of questions posed to and answered by the Chief Acting Financial Officer. I attempted to walk through the written explanation she presented to me and explain the answers in basic terms. At the conclusion of our meeting, Ms. Fellows requested copies of correspondence or legislation related to county council action taken with respect to the school system's budget. I agreed to provide these to her since they were public documents. Ms. Fellows thanked me for my time and stated she appreciated me sitting down with her to go over her concerns. It is my understanding that Ms. Fellows has been using the context of her meeting with me to support her allegations. However, I don't believe those issues are anything more than a lack of communication or a lack of understanding. I trust that this memorandum clarifies my position and the nature of our February 6, 2013 meeting. If you would like to discuss this matter further, feel free to contact me. And this was copied to Andrea C. Harrison, County Council Chair, Obie Patterson, County Council Vice Chair, Robert J. Williams, Council Administrator, and William M. Hunt, Deputy County Administrator.
I make a motion to confirm actions taken in executive session. No, we're not done.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Is there a second? Second. It's been properly moved and second that we confirm actions taken in executive session. Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
On the motion, Mr. Barrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps? Aye. Ms. Eubanks? Aye. Ms. Fellows?
No.
Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Ms. Waller? Aye. Ms. Boston? Aye. Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. It's been properly moved and seconded that the Board of Education meeting is hereby adjourned.